How's it going, folks?
Right. Let's just check the sound and everything. I think we should be good. So, good evening, everyone. Quick F for sound check. I think we should be good. Just double check here. I think we're good on the sound. Just turn these off and on. Right. Sorry, a bit off camera, chaps. Good evening, gentlemen. Good Abend, meine Kinder. It's a bit hot and sweaty here in Berlin, so I thought I'd be camera off a little while and let the good-looking chap take over the optics. All right, screw the optics. Obviously, thank you for the flood of DMs accusing me being a member of the Israeli intelligence service and not the real Mossad, and a host of other fantastic conservative responses to the stream. But what we want to do here, I think, Raymond and I, is we want to stay on topic and stay on target. And Elon Musk being topical right now is back to what, as Raymond's an engineer as well, is looking at our models for morality, looking at our models for metapolitics, and see how this particular drama sort of plugs into those. Is that right, Raymond?
Correct.
Yep. So Raymond has been performing a lot of experiments himself now with moral foundation theory and epistemic chambers with frustrating, is that right? Frustrating.
Well, nobody really engages. It's just like shouting into the void. Mostly, I guess it's just because I have a blue check mark. So probably a lot of my stuff kind of gets pushed all the way down to the bottom of the threads, and nobody really bothers to read it, which is fine.
Oh, we'll get to that the blue check mark and the fact that the entire normal social media model has been taken over by Elon Musk. And usually these things work by an algorithm called event consistency, where you have an asynchronous thread of messages. What happens is they effectively splice a message queue, and you get into a sort of slightly random out of order and eventually consistent order. What Elon Musk has done is decided to monetize and capitalize for his $8 pound of flesh sort of tweeting. And therefore, what you do get is a barrage of this. There's some great videos actually explaining how this is working, how regular traditional Twitter users can't get to see what they normally expect to see. They get flooded by people who are not really on their response lines because he's fiddling with the algorithm. But where do we start? I guess let's start with some outer claims, first of all. My outer claim, of course, is that Elon Musk is wrong. He's wrong morally, and he's wrong metapolitically. I will start with the moral bit first. I mean, both Raymond and I will park our faith in God and just stay at the moral foundation theory level, that we both know that Tanakh and the Gospels and the Quran can be mapped, amongst other things, onto MFT. So we know we're coming at this and keeping the anti-religious people at bay for a moment. I'm making one or two claims. I'm making the first claim that Elon Musk is wrong morally. What he is doing, whether he knows it or not, is a moral bad and not a moral good. And I'm also going to make an out and another secondary claim that he is metapolitically, his strategy is flawed and that he cannot win. And I made this claim straight out to the bat. Most people on the right were very upset. I said, Elon Musk is going to lose against the cathedral. He's going to lose and he's going to back away. He's going to give up his claims. He's going to try to wiggle out of it. And eventually the cathedral is going to beat him for reasons we're going to outline. But before that, we have to say, well, why is he morally wrong? What's this thing about free speech? What's hate speech? Now, how do we differentiate free speech and hate speech? So we've got a bunch of little videos, and we've got a lot of detailed data for us to look over together. And we're going to substantiate some of our claims. But first, what I'm going to do is play 4 or 5 minutes. Or the Nazi laughers might have to relax for a moment as we first play 5 minutes, because there's a fantastic historian at UCLA who's done tremendous work over the last couple of decades at UCLA on understanding models of hatred, for example, and how they work. So we're going to listen to about 4 or 5 minutes of that, and then I'm going to stop the video and we're going to take it from there. So let's go.
Foundations and community partners. Benko Family Foundation, the Friedman Hospitality Group, Friends from NEPA, Mercy Ministry Corporation, the Sister Carol Rittner Holocaust Fund at Misericordia University, the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation. Additional support provided by Friedman Interfaith Endowment Fund at Temple Israel, Sandra G. and Maury M. Myers Charitable Gift Fund of the Scranton Area Community Foundation, the Scranton Area Community Foundation, Andrew J. Sordoni III, and by the following.
The images are horrendous. So much hate. Such brutal acts people committed against one another. People trying to live, work, and raise their families. Our grandfathers and great-grandmothers. The Holocaust is indeed world history, but it's not ancient history, and it's clear that hate is still alive and well. But hate doesn't start with a gun or a knife, or bombs or tanks. It starts with words.
I'm a victim. I'm a survivor. I'm a mourner.
A gunman armed with an AR-15 assault rifle.
7 of my congregants were shot dead in my sanctuary. It starts with speech. Words of hate.
In the next hour, join us as we explore the genesis of hate. We'll look at spiking rates of anti-Semitism. We'll explore civic participation and whether American democracy is at risk, where and how misinformation and disinformation gets its start, whether it's instructive to look to the past when it comes to the future.
Isn't there a chance for good? The answer is yes, there is.
And perhaps most importantly, what possible solutions are out there for all of us as we look ahead.
We will rebuild. Just stop the hate. Don't say it.
Holocaust warnings, American anti-Semitism and extremism. Welcome to a very special program here at WVIA, during which we intend to magnify an important and often very difficult conversation about the Holocaust, yes, and other parts of world history many people would rather not think of, about what's happening in today's America, and about what any of us might be able to do in our own communities. We are honored to welcome 4 esteemed panelists to the WVIA studios to help us wade through this, and I would like to introduce them now. Dr. David Myers is a distinguished professor of history in the UCLA History Department. He's the author or editor of more than 15 books in the field of Jewish history, and he is also a Scranton native. Sister Carol Rittner, distinguished professor emerita of Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Stockton University in New Jersey, and the author or editor of 21 books and numerous essays about the Holocaust. She's also a member of the Religious Sisters of Mercy. Dr. Alex Alvarez is a professor in the Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona. His main areas of study are collective and interpersonal violence. He's also a published author on the subject who's presented research across the US and Europe, and the founding co-editor of the journal Genocide Studies and Prevention. And Dr. Kelly McFall is professor of history and director of the honors program at Newman University in Wichita, Kansas. His professional interests lie in the history of violence, especially comparative genocide. He's also moderator of a podcast, New Books in Genocide Studies, where he reviews new books and interviews the authors and editors. Certainly an impressive group, and we welcome you all to WVIA. We're going to start with David about hate and why that is so hard to define. What is it?
Yeah, well, it has vexed and perplexed scholars for a very long time. The precise definitions we know of, a lot of hate-adjacent notions like prejudice, bias, discrimination. But what is hate? And the best that I could offer is that hate is an amalgam of affect or emotion on one hand, belief, the belief that somebody is something other, and then the third piece, action. And those 3 pieces work together to really portray someone else as a kind of indefinable and a fixed kind of personality, something that can't be changed. It's not what they do, but who they are that matters when one comes to hate. And what really becomes dangerous is when that personal view of someone or something becomes interpersonal, becomes shared, becomes imposed on someone else. And what becomes even more dangerous as we sort of ascend the scale of danger is when the interpersonal becomes societal. And society as a whole castigates, vilifies, and imposes this sensibility of hate on others.
And we're there, you think?
I think we're there in many, many ways.
I thought I'd stop it right there. Whoops. I thought I'd stop it right there. And that's all I wanted to play for this bit. Raymond. So interesting. Hate is difficult to define. Obviously, the Nazi laughers are getting very excited in the chat. But he, after 20 years, I've read some of his stuff. He's actually a solid historian. Is if there's an amalgam of an emotion, a feeling, some sort of belief, and that amalgam is then translated to action. The three things together are defining something else, some immutable other.
Something alien. Truly, it ends up sort of loosely defining to something alien, something fundamentally not understandable or truly unknown, which is sort of the behavior how you get to the definition of xenophobia, because xenophobia would be to define something as truly alien and to be afraid of the alien.
And more importantly, when you look at his work as well, and I had a quick read through some of his stuff, I've read some of his stuff before, it looks at also, he defines the fact that the other is characterized as having an immutable characteristic, meaning it doesn't matter what they say or do, it's who they are.
Yes.
A black person, a Jewish person, a woman, a member of the LGBTQ. So we're looking at the definition of hate, a professional academic definition of hate. And then the more interesting thing is from our interest in complex systems and the general metapolitical framework, there's the difference between the personal that then becomes interpersonal, that then evolves to the societal. You can see that as one actor, two agents in a model, all the agents together in the societal model, and you've got something bubbling up that could be hate against white people. If it said hate against white people, all the Nazi laughers would cheer and chat. But yes, hate against white people, we're all for fighting hate against white people. If I swap that and say hate against Jewish people, they're like, boo, hate against Jewish people, bad. So you can see that for each person, an individual actor in the model, their notion of hate itself at the personal, at the interpersonal societal is itself a relativistic notion. It's okay to hate black people, but how dare you hate white people? It's okay to, it's not okay to hate white people, but hating Jewish people is just okay. Right?
Yeah, there's a disconnect. Yeah, there becomes a disconnect, right? The teeth don't really match up on the gears. The teeth are kind of misaligned there in that perception of reality.
Engineers like to say, this matter, my gears are not locking, I've got two different ratios of my gears and everyone get together. But notably, of course, and this is going to matter when we look at Elon Musk's claims, is that it's one rule for me and another rule for you. I don't want you to say anything bad about white people, but I'm happy to talk about Jewish people or women. I want you to say something bad about gay people, but you better not say anything about straight people. So what you have immediately is a moral inconsistency. It's not the same standard being applied for both. It's not a universal standard. Therefore, it's morally ungrounded.
Makes them look
right, of course, is that it is therefore technically relativistic and left-wing. Right?
Yeah, it makes him look no different. It makes him look no different than the progressives he claims to fight.
Indeed, absolutely.
And he becomes what you would consider the right wing. He becomes the mirror. He becomes the mirror image of the said behavior that he is supposedly fighting against, which is why we make the claim here that he is actually in fact morally wrong, because in his attempt to make a moral stand in favor of white people, he actually ends up becoming in effect the mirror of what it is he is supposedly standing against.
You become the thing you hate, right? It's the old adage, right? You effectively become, we have this across literature, we have this across time itself. So here we have, and also from a systemic point of view, or from a systems modeling point of view, what's interesting is you have this idea that if the right come, because a large part of our audience would be right wing, the right audience will come and they're going like, oh, but this can't be the case. We must have a set of standards. But then if we were to dig deeper and go, what is your meta virtue? What is your meta ethic? What is the virtue above your value set? It seems to be inconsistent, if not incoherent. It's one set of rules for me, another set of rules for you. When I flip this, you have all the, for example, case in point, the white nationalists might come out. But let's take another example from the left, because we're going to look at this, not a right-left thing for me and Raymond right now tonight. We're going to look at how the left, for example, would use double standards. For example, the left will use double standards in their morality, where they say it's okay, for example, to claim this thing about Jews, but let's say Indian Americans are exempt from such criticism, or let's say Italian Americans or Catholic Americans are exempt. So you see that this fundamental meta-ethical principle of which he is guilty of is an inconsistent set of virtues. By virtue, I mean a meta-ethic, something above my value system, incoherent and inconsistent, right? If we assume he's operating on a moral basis, we're going to see that his basis doesn't seem to be moral whatsoever. His basis seems to be fiscal and power, and we're going to look at that why, and we're going to make those claims later in the second part. So morally, if you look at this, you go, okay, so how would you look at this? We've got a working example of hate. We know we can see how the hate maps onto a systemic modeling of hate. We can see that it applies. So what about the left versus right? Because most of booze, I've got over 10 accusations of working for the Israeli intelligence services already. And I'm getting my DMs are lit off. Good evening, Wendy. The DMs are letting off saying, how dare you? How dare you? Because the right are going to say that, oh, but the ADL is our bogeyman because it's left-wing, number one. It's a bogeyman because it's not supporting our side of the fight. It's not, for example, if I was a white nationalist, ethno-nationalist, or if I was a conservative and not a white nationalist, just saying, oh no, it's only supporting the left, and the left are not our side, and therefore they're our enemy, and therefore boo. But that's not true, because we're going to use anti-Semitism as one of the examples. Why? Because anti-Semitism is the crown jewels of hatred. It is, I mean, to quote or to paraquote the author Saul Bellow, where he speaks about the Jewish people in Israel, the quote may as well apply to anti-Semitism. It's as broad as history and as deep as sleep. It has been there for thousands of years. It has been there before the Exodus, and it seems to never go away. So there's something that seems to be mutable as a characteristic of something. Pick on this. It's, if you like, it's the coup de grace, it's the icing on the cake of hate. So if you're trying to understand hate and what this whole game is about, because we're going to look at the lawsuits, we're going to look at the clauses of the legislation Elon Musk is up against, we're going to look at the absolute raw data on the hatred on the platform. So we need a working definition of hate. So what I think will be quite interesting, if you don't mind, Raymond, is what I'm going to also do is bring another piece of video from a fantastic researcher at who's did all her training, system trainings at MIT, and is now doing her doctorate at Harvard, where she thought, well, it's anti-Semitic attitudes. We're using anti-Semitism as the crown jewels of hatred here. Where everyone jumps up and goes, is this all about being pro-Jewish, anti-Jewish? Well, yes, of course it's pro-Jewish, but more interestingly, it's a model of hatred. And she's done her research on anti-Semitic attitudes amongst Americans, particularly looking at anti-Semitism on the left. So that's where the right people go, oh, look, you're going to bash the left. Let's have a look at the left. What's, the right, it's so easy to, your enemy, a log in your enemy's eye, right, Raymond? It's so easy to point the finger and go, okay, I can relate to this, right?
Yes. If I may, as sort of a supporting perspective with the whole ADL position, one of the interesting things I don't think is really taken into account, it's not really a devil's advocate position, but it's if the ADL, with all of its authority in the domain of hate speech, was treating any language that is anti-white as hate speech, would you be so up in arms about defending the ADL? Would you be so angry? Would you be so upset if we came in and said, yes, the ADL is right? They are siding with they were in fact siding with Elon Musk. What would your position be about it?
I will say,
Let's say,
if you go back to our game theory models, right, that we speak about a lot, you and I, if you look at them and go, okay, if I was looking for cooperation, they agree to disagree, leveraging of cooperation, I say, okay, suppose Twitter came out and said, no, we're not going to have any racism against white people and no racism against black people. How would you divide the game board, right? Would you say, oh, some people say, okay, that's fair, square. No racism against black people. In exchange, no racism against white people. And you might say that the ADL have not been vigorous in defending racism against white people, and that's a charge that can level against them. But would you therefore say, right, if the ADL were to stand up and fight my corner for racism against white people, would I then also stand in their corner of racism against black people? If you say no, then you're just guilty of hate speech.
Yep.
And we talk about what hate speech means in a minute, what the consequences of the third part of action is. But here you go again. So you've got a nice game theory model here. You've got which side you're picking on. What about the left-wing view? So this is very recent, of a few days ago. She's I looked up some of her work. She's very, very sharp graduate from MIT, now into the Kennedy School at Harvard. And she's saying, well, if anti-Semitism is not just in the right and also exists in the left, what's the models of these things? Are these models rising from populism? And I look at the differentiating factors within the model to see if this anti-Semitism that shows on the left are the same. Is there a double standard? And the reason why this comes up to the ADL, because most of the right wing are going to say, oh, the ADL are just batting for the left and not for the right. They're only going for anti-Semitism if it comes from the right. What about anti-Semitism from the left? So she went there and she's done some fantastic research. So I don't need to play her video. What I'm going to do is just flash through the highlights because I memorized most of it. She's saying the first thing was, is there a horseshoe theory effect here? Are the far left and the far right showing equivalent at scale grade models, i.e. scale-free models, models across a dimension, like across age, across self-identification, across socioeconomic status? Are they similar or different? Secondly, are these a common, is there a common underpinning cause, something you and I are interested for our work, Raymond, separately, is this something that's a populist uprising against a globalist force? Is this a consequential form of hate? Is this a reactionary form of hate, not in the political sense, but in the responding to stimuli? And therefore, she looks at the example, could they arise for different reasons? Could they get to the same place? So what she does is quite an interesting piece of research with a pretty rigorous mind. And she says, well, let's see if anti-Semitism has a horseshoe pattern. Is it the same? Are the young millennials or young Zoomers and underneath on the right the same as those on the left? That we know the left generation, the most tolerant generation in the West ever. And do they have the same independent reasons for achieving the same raison d'etre, if you like, to hate against the Jews? From the right, she says it's quite easy. The Jews are for white race. The ultimate betrayal of white race is the way the right will look at the Jews. The left will look at the Jews as saying they're oppressors, predominantly because of Israel. So if you look at the largest movements in the US campuses, it's all pro-Palestinian, and therefore Jews are being kicked out or removed from spaces where traditionally they would be their strongest places like academic research. They've been kicked out because they're being equated with Zionism. The support for the state of Israel is obviously a form of anti-Semitism, but they're going to say anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, and therefore we're not going to be guilty of anti-Semitism. We're just guilty of accusing the state of Israel for existing. So if you look at that, she does this, and she comes up with some fascinating stuff that will matter to us. If you look at the distribution of the data, let's have a quick look over here. I'll just jump to points. The two types of manifestations of the phenomenology. One is overt, right? So what they do is they use double-blind studies to control for this. This is what's called the overt anti-Semitism battery. And the typical one is, and you see this, of course, on the right, Jews are more loyal to Israel than to America. Is it appropriate for opponents of Israel policies to boycott Jewish American businesses? So a classic trope against the Jewish people are going to be, oh, you have dual loyalty, you have dual citizenship, and I want you to prove your loyalty by, for example, denouncing Israel. Now, this could apply to a normal Jewish American kid who's grown up, who's maybe never even been to Israel, maybe has a natural affinity to his ancestral land, or at least the land where he knows is a safe haven, but he's going to be held to standard that I wouldn't turn around and ask the Catholics, I won't ask the Indian Americans, I won't ask anyone else. I'll just say, and the third part of that is, do these Jews have too much power? One of the oldest tropes of all, the Jews are controlling things, they're disproportionate. So she looks at an overt anti-Semitism battery, and here's the fascinating results that you see. So split against the political spectrum, and by age, what you see immediately is that the young right, all the chaps on the Telegram channels, all the people jumping up and down the comments are going, too much power, boycott Jewish businesses, they're more loyal to Israel. But the left don't seem to exhibit this. So you don't see an overt horseshoe theory in terms of the source of anti-Semitism. But if you move further down, which is quite interesting over here, you see very quickly, when you run past the double standard, wait a second, let me see if I can find it without saving you guys to, here you go. When you then want to try to find a double standard and say, okay, if the left are to claim that you are for ubiquitous social justice, just like we held the right, Raymond, to the standard of saying I was against racism for white people, would I be against racism for black people? She runs the same experiment saying, I take Indians and Jews and Muslims and ask them, would I hold them to the same standard? Would I ask Muslims, for example, to condemn Islam or condemn Arab states for being Muslim as a dual loyalty test? So would I make an American Muslim condemn Islam? And you see immediately that you see a double standard going on here. Jews are being singled out specifically. Unlike Catholics, I think the experiment uses Catholics, Indians, and I think Jews together. So you can see that when the ADL is fighting anti-Semitism, or the ADL is meant to be fighting hate, they should be fighting this uniquely. They should be saying, it isn't a left-wing thing, because most of the right wings, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the right wing's objection is the ADL are pro-left wing. Is that right, Raymond? At least in the US?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. That is the biggest one. That is the biggest claim that I've noticed that the right tends to make, and actually we can even see it in the chat right now, is that the definitions that either side is using for anti-Semitism, they don't match. So they're having what we would call the impedance mismatch on language translation, right? So the language itself isn't matching up. So the definition, and some of the claims in chat were something akin to, they call it anti-Semitism because people are noticing them.
Yes. Indeed, you can see the chat as well jumping up. The 109 meme is going. By the way, I've yet to find anyone who gave me the names of the 109 countries. Right? They just never seem to come up. They all seem to see the same country gets double counted and treble counted. Do you know there are less than 200 nations? I'd like the names of the 109 countries. Please, anyone, just in the message. 109 countries, no duplication. Thank you. So, the 109 meme notwithstanding, so you see that this left versus right means, okay, so you've got this symmetry here, and if the left and right, and the ADL's job is to, of course, found it as a Jewish organization, its fundamental raison d'etre is to fight anti-Semitism, and rightfully so. It also has done a lot of work fighting generic racism, fighting bigotry of all forms. It's a left wing, and how do we know this in our models? Because the long march of the left has 5 clear tranches: sexism, racism, religion, and the ADL have been on this. And the right seem to be go, oh, but you're not batting for me. Now, the question then is, what is Elon Musk doing here? Is Elon Musk saying, I'm going against the ADL because what? Because what is the moral stance? What do you think Musk's moral stance is? It's completely unclear to me. It seems he says, I want to support free speech, but when you look at what that free speech is, it's not quite free speech. So what we want to do here is I'm going to present a bunch of little things. So let's start over here. And let's look at
So as an observer in real time with a Twitter account myself, one of the first things I did notice at least with a lot of my feed, is that the biggest issue came from the fact that, yes, they have already engaged in an advertising boycott, the ADL anyways, against Twitter, and Twitter actually suffered a 60% reduction in total profits from advertisements.
Yep.
And Elon is essentially frustrated now because he is getting to the point where the $44 billion valuation of the company is now dropped down to, I think it's lost like 90%. It's down to $4 billion.
Oh, it's insane
devaluation. That's an insane bubble that gets popped. But that's also arguably the byproduct of the fact that the company was probably overvalued to begin with.
Possibly overvalued by free market principles, but most of his valuation was based on it's worse than that, right? For someone who likes corporate mechanics and corporate finance, your valuation is a multiplier in the future of your revenue and sales. Advertisers walked away, and he's blaming the Jews, they walked away because my missus works in advertising, because no decent brand is going to let brand value dilution happen by saying, buy my 401k next to some idiot posting a picture of Jews control the banking system. A large pension fund or a large Bank of America is not going to try to sell middle-class people 401ks right by some idiot because remember, most large corporations they outsource their marketing and branding to agencies.
Correct.
Agencies are going to go to a large Fortune 100 client and going, oh, we're not going to use this platform because we see some Jewish guy in Florida logs in, sees your Bank of America 401k offer right by some idiot going, Jews run the banks with their hands whirling together. So the advertisers walked away by branding and advertising. We're going to look at the data for this as well. And what happened is what Elon did is rather than use free speech, he desperately obviously was trying to show up the revenues. We're going to see how he decided to make money by actually leveraging hate. And the data on this is fantastic. The data on this is unbelievable if you haven't seen this data. We're going to use 2 examples. How he's used 2 or 3 examples, how he's used anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, and we're going to look at the money he's made from it, and even more so, how he's picked some of the most notorious people who are banned, white supremacists, neo-Nazis, crazy COVID conspiracy people, and made millions of dollars on it. So let's fly through a quick look through over here. How does Twitter make millions out of anti-LGBTQ rhetoric? Remember, we have a model of hate. You can take your position as you wish on the LGBTQ issue as you want. In 19 November 20, let's read some key salient facts from the data. The problem is Elon is now operating against the cathedral and dedicated people who are sitting there mining every piece of Twitter data and publishing it. So the problem he thinks is if he can pull a fast one, he's going nowhere. 19 November 2022, 5 people killed in Colorado Springs nightclub. Following the shooting, a number of tweets went viral branding LGBTQ people as groomers. Then Elon Musk attacked the former Twitter employee Yo Roth by insinuating he was a child abuse enabler, calling him gay. Another person who runs Libs of TikTok did her first mainstream interview. During that, Tucker Carlson comes on saying these people are evil and accuse them of grooming. This is picked up and amplified by Twitter. Off you go down, and what you see in terms of the raw data and numbers. In no time at all, I'll give you the highlights, because the second one's even more interesting. You have Gays Against Groomers, 50 million impressions, $235. Chris Rufo, 368. Just the top 5, Tim Booz and then James Lindsay, Libs of TikTok, made him $6 million. So he took $6 million just from people doing the anti-LGBTQ thing. This is nothing compared to the next one. Bear with me a second. This is actually quite mind-blowing, right?
This one makes me this one made me frustrated when I read it, because I've already done like one or two. I already had some moments where I essentially just kind of picked apart everything Andrew was saying in a lot of his tweets, and I just sit here and listen to this guy and just go, he just doesn't get it. And then everybody's taking him as gospel, and it's kind of frustrating. And the amount of money he made is disgusting.
Right, let me see if I can get this one. Where's the, let's bring up this one. This one's
going to blow your mind, guys. This one's crazy.
Going to blow your mind. So then Twitter, he decided straight away the advertisers walked. They wanted, the Jewish people didn't make them walk. The agencies looked at them and said, look, we can look at the contents of the letter. The ADL, 45 civil society research groups, large corporations telling him, look what's happening on Twitter. The amount of people posting just horrific Telegram tier stuff on a mainstream media platform is going to get your advertisers to walk. They started walking because they listened to the same agencies. The top 5 or 6 branding ad agencies control 90% of the Fortune 100. I know who they are. My missus is mates with lots of their executives. They're not going to touch stuff. They're not going to tell a large brand, put yourself in there with someone that, look at how he did and who did he bring back. This is, again, remarkable data. So, and this is his problem. We're going to talk about the CCPH. He is now, when we talk about his free speech, he is suing these people and trying to stop their free speech. Look at the data generated just by his ad revenue. $20 million. Here are the names. Andrew Tate, 12 million, right? 2 million from Robert Malone. These are the COVID nutters, right? Roger Handy, 1.5 million. Peter McCulloch, almost 1 million. Gateway Pundit, 712, $750,000. Andrew Anglin, probably the most notorious American neo-Nazi, pretty much, right? I mean, you can get anyone more than Andrew Anglin, right? Runner of Stormfront. He's allowed back on. So you're talking about 20 million in chump change relatively to the people walking out, because he's hoping that these people and their tweets, and you can look at the data models of this stuff. I'm hoping to get access to the API of these people with a couple of requests to be able to mine their data. Because what they're doing is he's taking them for $8, saying, you guys are the influencers. If Andrew Anglin comes on and goes like, Jews are responsible for this, and then all the idiots that follow him and go, let's retweet this, then what Twitter is doing is they're actually amplifying these voices, putting the $8 payment tweets ahead of someone else. If you look at all the left-wing reviews, they're saying, my whole Twitter is now flooded with right-wing people talking about Jews and black people. And what is Elon Musk doing? He's taking 20 million. Why? Because he's losing his advertising money. Now, a lot of people say, this is unacceptable. He shouldn't be losing his advertising money. And I want to understand why should he keep his advertising money? Why should a company with a brand value goes to, I don't know, Mother, goes to one of the top branding agencies and goes, oh, look, we want to sell our normal product to normal middle American families. And right beside them is Andrew Anglin telling us how the Holocaust didn't happen. Right now, am I missing a trick here, Raymond, my man?
No.
The US market?
Yeah, no, I don't really have much to say other than just the sheer views is crazy. And then you realize Andrew Tate alone, for as much as it's funny too, because a lot of people on the right would be so anti-Muslim, but apparently Andrew Tate is Muslim, if I'm not mistaken, which is like it's a comical thing. It's a comical thing to listen to.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he's running around because they're trying to give him subpoena after subpoena, but apparently he runs around Ohio, right? Because he's being pursued constantly by bailiffs trying to serve him. It's the last thing I heard, unless something is updated, right? He's basically running around because he's got subpoena after subpoena. I think his dad owns a couple of businesses in Columbus, and he's running around and they're just trying to subpoena him all the time. So the brave Nazi is running around because he's got indictments coming up his way. And in the meantime, Elon Musk seems to have no concern with taking money from a man who promotes Holocaust denial, execution of the Jewish people. And this is what I mean by Elon Musk is not because when Elon Musk makes the claim, I'm against anti-Semitism, what does he mean by that? You're hosting neo-Nazis for what must be chump change, right? Under what? The guise that this is free speech? Is this free speech? I mean, is this, if you take your free speech up to the moral and the meta-ethical value and the virtue moral, you're crazy, right? You're supporting a guy who literally is out there calling for the genocide of Jewish people, and you're taking his money, you're promoting his tweets, you're accelerating. On the other hand, you're trying to tell people, oh, I'm totally against anti-Semitism. I'm totally against hatred. And we're going to see, so this is another example of what's happened. And here, interfere if you want, Raymond. But what's really interesting after that is what then happens what happens when this goes to the cathedral? What happens when it runs against the cathedral, right? So do we want to look at the court case? Because I know people are dying to get in. Well, let's do one little thing quickly before that. It's quite interesting. Let's go share Twitter and his fight against both the CCDC and the ADL. So here's Twitter. Here's the tag ban the ADL, right? What am I going to see when I go to ban the ADL? These are being promoted, remember? These are being accelerated by them ahead of everyone. Anti-white watch, right? Ban the ADL. Here we go. Let's go. Anti-ADL. James Cohen. I don't know if you guys can see this. Syrian girl, again, totally prototype National Socialist Nazi type. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a bigoted racist. Here's Ben Shapiro. We should get him as too. The Goyim News Network. Look, Benjamin Netanyahu is getting a formal intimation from Congress. ADL FBI. Who's this? Some person go around here. Lucas Gage, the ADL. I'll zoom this in, guys, if you can't see this. Look, 5 dancing Israelis is a conspiracy theory. We have police and FBI reports. So they're putting a meme that the Israelis are responsible, the Jews are responsible for 9/11, right? All lives matter. Ban the ADL. What's the sign of a healthy justice system? No Jews. Right? Back to the Goyim News Network. On we go. And it just goes on and on and on. And there's literally no chance of well-known British nationalist. And it's just relentless. It's an just wavering stream of just Dallas Sniper wanted to kill white people. Can you see immediately what was a normal kind of platform? Looks like Telegram. Look, the ADL are they only want to back the Jews and no one else, despite the fact that the ADL have stood with the civil rights movement and God knows what else, right? There's not Jewish. Keep going in the ads. Ban the ADL. It's unbelievable. I mean, I just had a fly through. I just couldn't believe the stuff. And the real face of Israel, more anti-Israel, a spoiler Hitler, a bit of more Jews and chicken stereotype, right? Be a Jew, fool God, right? Abort the ADL, child rape murders. This is basically what Twitter has become. Ooh, look, hand robbing. Some of the hand robbing, again, Jewish anti-Semitic memes. Relentless. Keith Woods, our favorite little Keith Woods, an anti-Semite of the deepest convictions, right? He's just in the Amman comments. He's like, it's the ADL anti-Christian, like Keith Woods is a Christian, right? Oh, look, let me get him on the Christian side. Man of the year, rogue. Look, ban the ADL. Get him, ban the ADL. Dancing Israelis. On 9/11, if I was an American, I'd be very upset to see any of this thing that does the honor. They're like, no Jews died in 9/11. That's ridiculous. US government counted 400 Jews and I think 10 Israelis who died in 9/11. No Jews died in 9/11. Dancing Israelis did 9/11, right? And on and on and on it goes, right? So again, the point is this what's going to work? Is this what he thinks is going to pass as not supporting anti-Semitism? I don't think so. But there's one more thing, when you talk about the cathedral, I know people are dying to, I'm sure Mosa wants to jump on. The problem he's got is, and this is why he's filed the cases, he's got a much deeper problem. His problem is not only is he going to go against, he can't take the ADL to court. His lawyers would strongly advise him not to let disclosure apply to your data servers. The first thing I was an ADL attorney is I asked for full access and disclosure of the content of your servers. He's not going to do that. Where is the bill text? He is now trying to duck the following. To those who are not familiar, don't like law, like people like geeks like I do, the Assembly Bill 587 in California was passed, and the California Assembly File Bill says all social media companies, remember most tech companies are based out of California, they're going to have to do the following. Let's see if I can zoom this in for you guys. Here's what is required for a social media company. Let's go to the important bit. And this is where he is. This is going to be the nail that breaks him, I think. A social media every 6 months is going to have to do a TOS compliance report.
Yep.
This TOS compliance report, if you fail to do so, you're going to be in violation of the law. This is the currently standing law. What do you need to do? You need to show that your current version of the TOS, you have to print your TOS. And it has to say that the statement of the TOS has no hate speech or racism, no extremism or radicalization, no disinformation or misinformation, just the tweets we saw. Each one of them is a violation. Out of hand is a violation, right? If I was wanted to, if I was a attorney general, I could just apply my public district attorney office and prosecute them. Foreign political interference, any of these categories must produce a TOS report that says total number of flagged items of content, total numbers of actioned items of content, action items that contested the result of the action, total number of contents that removed, demonetized, or deprioritized, number of times these were viewed by users, who saw them, who shared them, and how they were. The Attorney General of California demands this of Facebook and all other social companies. What does Elon do? He's going to take them to court.
Yeah, he's going to try to actually tell them, I'm not going to submit a TOS report for this. And he's certainly not going to provide a cover letter.
Someone says, Craig, I saw no violations, right? So, okay, there you go. You saw no violations, right? So, for example, do you believe spreading disinformation? Do you believe that you would survive the accusation that the Israelis did 9/11? Would you, Mr. Craig Buckley, be willing to go to jail for 20 years in court unless you can make the case that the largest criminal act conducted on American soil was conducted by the Jews? I mean, are you willing to put your money where your mouth is and go to jail? Or is that a violation of disinformation?
And you have to understand too, from the legal perspective, since Abe Lincoln, federal tends to trump state. So what ends up happening is this ends up just becoming the initial stepping stone for building a larger federal case against any company that decides not to abide by the rules.
Oh, not
and then you start going up against federal, and then you start going up against federal code, so U.S. code, U.S. title code, and you start going up against federal law.
All civil rights,
and then
federal, right? They're all federal. They're not. The state cannot take over the civil rights. That's pure federal state. So as soon as you try to violate federal those rights, you can go up to the higher.
Yeah, you're immediately getting investigations from FBI. CIA will probably get involved too. Pretty much any major intelligence agency, the five intelligence agencies will probably have some part to do with it. You'll probably get undercover work get done within the company as well. You have to understand, as soon as you pick this fight, you're essentially opening the entire gamut of the U.S. government to use any and all means necessary to root out.
This is the United States, right? I can tell you that in Germany already, Jewish organizations have filed, an Australian organization filed, where the EU regulations are not like the United States, they're EU-wide. It's $275,000 per violation per message. Now, Twitter is posting anti-Semitic stuff. Jewish organizations have already filed in German court.
Yeah.
Now, you can do all the US stuff, but is Twitter going to operate in the EU? Yes, Elon Musk doesn't have the same sway politically as he does in the EU, as he does in the United States. They're going $275K per tweet. Now, what's he going to do with that? Is he going to keep going for the $8 on one hand to get guys like Keith Woods and the rest of them, and trying to go like, hey, the Holocaust didn't happen in Germany, one of the countries with one of the strictest laws about Holocaust denial. Right? I mean, it's actually against to deny the Holocaust in Germany. So we've got this. So I don't know what you think. I know Mosad and others want to get out. Put the link in. What are your final thoughts on this? Do you think, in terms of the cathedral, he has a chance?
When it comes to trying to deal with, especially if we're going to give, if anybody on the left or the right is going to give any deference to the capacities or the capabilities of the US government to be able to inflict any kind of damage, either economically, politically, or socially, to any organization that operates within the United States, then you must understand that him picking a fight with the ADL by proxy also ends up picking a fight with the US government, because because by engaging with the ADL, he essentially tells the ADL, you're wrong that I'm not engaging in what is technically illegal according to the Civil Rights Act, right? So you're essentially engaging in behavior that you're declaring is no longer illegal to the Civil Rights Act, but that now still warrants, because of, if I'm not mistaken, it is footnote 4 of USA v. Caroline Products, footnote 4, that essentially says any organization that could be engaging in a discriminatory manner should be viewed with increased scrutiny. And that also pretty much makes it every single company, not-for-profit, and organization and government agency in the United States cannot be pro-majority, which is part of the reason we see this long-term sort of shift in the behavior of being an anti-majority position, of being a pro-minority position. Now, yeah, he's picking a real serious fight, and I don't know how it's going to work out for him. I think really what we'll probably just end up seeing is he ends up kind of saying, like, look, I have to, because in defense of the original position of the problem with being a free speech absolutist is if you think people lie, then you have to be anti-lies.
Can I give you
can't be pro-free speech if you are pro-lying, because pro-free speech would mean that you're okay with people being deceptive or
I'll leave you with a little thought that I've run this experiment for the last few weeks. Lady Wendy has seen my apparently crazy-looking messages, all of the tweets, Wendy, for their reasons. They're performing experiments. I keep testing people's free speech, going, okay, you have absolute free speech. I want you to abuse Jewish people, abuse black people, abuse gay people. Use your absolute free speech. I want my absolute free speech to be used to name you, find you, name your address, and publish you and everything about you on the internet. Would you agree with my absolute free speech to publish where you live? Immediately they balk at the idea of free speech. But blessings wants to do it. I can go to the little boy's room, and I'm sure Dubin has something contrarian. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Blessings for now.
Yeah, I have to say, politically and business-wise, I'm probably on the side of Musk. It was like ethnically and religious-wise, like I'm a Jew. And I would say really like, no, it's the ADL who picked the fight with Elon Musk, and not necessarily picked a fight with him, but one of their biggest policies is pushing for, use the euphemism or the pejorative, censorship or content moderation. And if that means, the ADL has a policy of content moderation that it's been pushing for over 5 years to all the social media. They've been lobbying on all fronts of pushing for legislation in Congress, Attorney General, advertiser boycotts, pressure against the companies, and coalition of various companies, advertisers, various things, and this content moderation that the ADL desires. It's unlikely the ADL will not give up until they get the content moderation or censorship, if you want to call it, that they desire. And then if you look at Elon Musk's, it's tough to know, like his personal interest, why he wants Twitter, his financial interest, maybe Tesla stock. At this point, it's possible that there's completely other things that basically have nothing to do with the Jews. But Elon Musk and his Tesla battle, his own venue for alternative media, that he could potentially lose tens of billions of dollars on Twitter, but it's still worth it financially. And then you have the internal battle between the Jews. So like Netanyahu requested to meet with Elon Musk, not about the ADL, about other things. Elon Musk is probably relatively popular among Jews, so even Isaacson, a half Jewish Christian, just wrote his biography. He's making the rounds. Lex Friedman, his Larry Ellison, his main partner. Not to mention, people always talk about Elon Musk. It's not much talk about Larry Ellison. I don't think. Larry Ellison probably owns like 20% of Twitter, and obviously he's Jewish. And differing opinions between Israel, So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. And I would have to say, so there's the two as a Jew, like as a Jew, and what I think is in the best interest is of the Jews, and how I would go about it if I was in charge, versus the ADL. And I've been mentioning to a lot of people who don't appreciate the ADL relatively represents the majority of American Jews through democratic processes. And a lot of Jews aren't familiar with how Jewish organizations work. But there is, the Conference of Presidents of Major Jewish American Organizations. There is a democratic process, just like AIPAC. Almost every Jewish organization has elections and parliamentary procedure and board of directors, and then they're members of regional and national organizations. And then the national organization are a member of the Conference of Presidents. And then the Conference of Presidents divvies up the various things that the different organizations do. So in that respect, the ADL does factually speak for the majority of American Jews through democratic processes. So when the ADL is doing this, they're doing it on behalf of the majority of American Jews because that's what American Jews want them to do. And Elon Musk put out that survey about censorship. Jews, overwhelmingly more than any group, support censorship, and there could be logical reasons, self-protection. So that's a point politically, business-wise, I'm in disagreement. And I would say it could be Israelis and right-wing Jews are going to be called to the question to say, like, well, the ADL does a lot of good. You're saying, like, no, you're a right-wing Jew. The ADL does not do a lot of good. It is not a good strategy. They might be good-hearted. They might be honestly trying to defend the Jewish people, doing what's best for the Jewish people. However, they do not actually do a lot of good because they take a negative approach. And I guess Masad here, he could give his ramble.
Hello. I missed what David said because I was behind a few minutes on the stream. So I'm like, I missed the very end. I don't know what was talked about, whether I missed something crucial.
I stepped away, but I believe he was saying that
80 minutes or so.
Saying that the ADL is fundamentally, there's a classic anti-Jewish trope that goes, Jews are responsible for the anti-Semitism against them. This is a trope.
Yes.
I don't.
Well, it's like saying whites are responsible for the anti-white hate.
I did not say that at all. I said that politically and business-wise, I'm in favor of Elon Musk.
I thought you were going to let me speak.
If you said
go. I'm just winding you up. Go for it.
It doesn't matter what I said. People listen here. You could just say what you want.
I mean, the ADL is really a leftist organization that is always attacking from one direction, it seems. But I was just watching a discussion on Israeli YouTube where someone who is an activist in America doing this sort of work, fighting anti-Semitism, he actually said that according to their research, 82% of what they define as anti-Semitic posts and whatever is actually coming from the American left, not from the right. So they are concentrating on the left. He's saying that the right, has issues as well. But he's not saying it's not. But as far as he's concerned, the main issue is the left. He says also the left is a bigger problem because it's in the institutions. So universities.
I think if I had a criticism of the ADL, the criticism would be it should be applied the same standards. For example, it should be saying I'm fighting racism against black people and the Jewish people. Here, I should be fighting racism against white people. I think they're open to criticism from the right.
Yeah, right? I think the mistake, it's a leftist organization. They shouldn't get involved in any issue, not black, not white or anything. If their job is to protect Jews, then just stick to that. They post about trans and gays and black people and stuff. It's not their business, and it kind of muddies it gets them involved in all sorts of conflicts they shouldn't be.
Well, maybe you missed the unfortunate about the ADL is the representation of the majority of American Jewish people through democratic processes. That the Conference of Presidents, you could say it's a leftist organization, but the ADL is just doing what American Jews want the ADL to do. And the ADL represents the majority of American Jews through internal organization democratic processes.
How exactly? What democratic processes?
if you're a member of an organization, they have a board of directors, they vote. They're members of larger organizations, which has the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, of which ADL is one of 51 members. So the purpose of the Conference of the Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations is for the Jewish community to have more impact through speaking through a unified voice. So the ADL is the unified voice of the organized Jewish American community, and it's through
It
democratic
may
process.
well be, but I think it's suffering from what
If
a
you're a
lot
member of
of
a federation or synagogue, you vote on these things. You vote.
fair
whether you're a
enough,
member.
but there are between 500,000 and 1 million Israelis who typically are not part of, in America, who are typically not part of any of these organizations. That's a large number of people. And the second thing is that, like most organizations, they tend to be detached from the people. I mean, I don't think that if you actually Jews scrutinize what the ADL is doing, I don't think the majority of them would approve. But if you told them that there's an organization that is there to defend Jews, they'll probably say that's a good thing. You know, just like if we told a Christian that there's some organization that is protecting Christians in Muslim countries, yeah, I'll support that. But, you know, but if you actually dig in and you find they're not doing
I'm saying
things
the
with
opposite.
people,
I'm
it's a
saying the
different
opposite,
issue.
not because it's my opinion, just so people should know the facts. It's like, no, the ADL is pushing these things like LGBT and the leftist agenda because that's what American Jews want them to push, and it's through democratic
I don't think
processes
so.
that they decide what they're
I
going
don't
to
think
push.
so. Yeah,
And
you
say,
said
okay,
that before.
It's only like 60% of American Jews that are
Yeah,
members
yeah.
of
So
organizations,
what?
and then you have 20% unaffiliated Jews. You have ultra-Orthodox Jews and Republican Jews. They're not part of
And
it.
a million,
So the
and between
ADL still gets
about half a
60%
million
of
Israelis
American
that are
Jews.
not. Half a
And the
million
reason they're pushing these
Israelis.
things is because that's what the organizations vote and tell them to push.
Yes. Okay. Half a
Are you
million
disagreeing with
Israelis.
that? Are you disagreeing with that factual representation?
Yes. Yes.
You don't think
Half
that
a million. Yes. Half a million
60%
Israel.
of American Jews are part of organizations that are a member of the Conference of Presidents, and they vote on these things, and they push the ADL to push these things on their behalf.
No, I disagree. You have no evidence for that. You don't have evidence. I believe that if you actually did a survey and showed them what the ADL is actually doing, many of them will not be so supportive. And 60% is not 100%. So 60%, so they got a majority of 60%. So what, 35%? So they represent a third of the Jews. And out of those third, a lot of them, once they scrutinize what the ADL is doing, probably half of them would not support the ADL. Because they
Jews vote on
believe,
these things
like
constantly.
most Jews,
If you add up
hold
the
on.
numbers-
They believe, like most Jews believe, like I used to believe until I looked into it, that the ADL was a good organization protecting Jews against, Nazis and anti-Semites. Sadly, it seems not. And the Israelis actually investigated the ADL, and there's an Israeli show about the ADL. Are you aware of this?
Is that the one that Elon Musk shared, the documentary or the show? No, I mean, I'm not. No, I mean, I know that Israelis feel different about that, and that's the point. Is that who are the member organizations of the Conference of Presidents? It's the Federation System, Reform Judaism, Conservative Judaism, multiple organizations, and they constantly
Yeah,
have
you already
polling like
said
this.
that.
So
You already
they
said
say, like,
that.
no, there are 3 million American Jews that strongly feel that the ADL should be pushing this, and the reason the ADL is pushing it is because
No.
that's what their
You don't
member
have. You've already
organizations want
said
them to
that.
push.
You don't have
So you could
evidence
say like it's
for
venerable
this.
if they're fighting anti-Semitism and Nazism. However, no, that's not what the majority, might be small majority now, of American Jews want them to push.
I
They
don't
are
think you have
actually
evidence.
pushing what their member organizations want them
Oh
to push.
man, you're just repeating yourself. You have no
Because
evidence
you're not
to support
acknowledging the
this
fact of the
claim.
point. I'm not even saying
You
I'm in disagreement. I'm right leaning. I'm just recognizing the ADL
You're not
actually
right
speaks for
leaning,
the
and you're not.
majority of American Jews through
No, they
democratic
don't.
processes.
Okay, you already said that, and I reject what you said.
But wouldn't you agree that the ADL also are not just fighting anti-Semitism? They have a long history, for example, of being involved in the civil rights movement, right? They've been combating racism against black people, combating discrimination.
Yeah, he will
against gay
say
people,
that's
right?
part of what Jews wanted.
Yeah. The original design of the organization was pretty much anything that would have been considered pro-minority at the time. Now, given the nature of the demographic change in the United States, we start to see the shift in behavior and how the behavior is actually functioning as a consequence, right? But that doesn't diminish retroactively now diminish any of the efforts the ADL had done for the 50 years prior.
Right. So, for example, civil rights movement, fighting, for example, the black gay. Well, now, as a conservative or right-wing people would disagree that these are things worth fighting for. Some on the right say, I don't care about racism against black people or bigotry against gay people. And then you'd be pointing out that the ADL is left. But the ADL has done both. Right? It is obviously, its primary mission is defending anti-Semitism with Jewish people, but it also is part of that, if you like, Jewish, progressive Jewish support in the United States has always been on the side of these progressive issues, which is why the right don't like the ADL.
And even for the things that you might agree with, so to say, like supporting Israel, fighting anti-Semitism, and fighting Nazis, the ADL takes a left-wing approach to it. So if you're a right-wing Jew, you say like, no, the ADL basically does not do anything good. And although they might be on the right side of certain issues, even their approach on that is negative and not the approach the right-wing Jew would take.
Yeah, but if they concentrated on just Jewish issues, then even though I disagree with them, I wouldn't be arguing, talking about them. There are lots of organizations doing work that I disagree with, but there's a point where I don't think the ADL is anything to do with Jews, and they're using Jews as a shield for other activities.
But David, what would a right wing, so example, even in the United States, forget this for a second, what would a right wing Jewish response be that you'd expect of the ADL to fight Nazis? What is the right wing view to fight Nazis?
Well, I mean, buy a gun, law and order, support the police. I mean, to say to organize as a whining minority, to pressure for censorship or special protections as a minority for hate crimes laws. You say like you're a right-wing Jew. You're saying these people have a right to hate me, and that's why I just bought another gun. And if they test it, they will find out. But it's their right to say whatever they want about me. It's their right to organize against me. And if you're scared, buy a gun. And if you're still scared, buy another gun. Or just saying that's what we need law and order for. The sense they can do whatever they want until they break the law. And if they break the law, we need strong law and order. And that's why I support the police. That is like a general right-wing attitude which the ADL doesn't usually take.
The American,
not only does it not take, it actually works against Orthodox Jews.
If I may,
it never fights for their behalf. It never complains when they're attacked. It's always about
the Orthodox Jews are not members of the Conference of Presidents. They have their own alternative organization.
So they don't count. They're not Jewish people. They don't count. Well, but black people do. I understand. Major American Jewish
I
get it. So black people are more important and they're not members. Then Jews are not members.
They're Jewish members.
I get it. No, you explain it well. We got it.
ADL represents the majority of American Jews. However,
right,
they represent their members.
Right. So they don't represent Jews. They represent a membership.
If I may, we have to understand though. If I may, just to sort of help this conversation.
You get it, Ray. They will fight for blacks, but not for Orthodox Jews. You get
it. That's what their members want them to do.
Yeah,
Jewish organization. Yes.
I want to point out something very important to understand, though, is that really this argument is starting to break down in the misunderstanding, the way that Ralph and I have talked about the models when we talk about the population curve, right? We talk about the demographic curve. We're talking about percentages of a percentage. So it may behave as if it's majority, but you can't really make that claim because, again, you're making a percentage of a percentage. So even if you're saying, right, 50 something percent of over half of American Jews, 53%, that's 53% of like, what is it? Like maybe 5% of the total population. You're talking about very, very infinitesimally small minorities. And it's an interesting thing too, that David brings up the pro, what's the word? The blue stripe
Jewish approach.
No, the blue pro police. We're starting to see now that a percentage within the percentage, the 45% of the population curve to the right, you're starting to see this. And this is just as an example. You're starting to see the 45% of the so-called right-leaning, right? So it's for the camera's sake, the 45% of the population that is starting to lean towards the right. Even then, a smaller percentage of that is still outwardly very pro-blue, right? But that anti-blue sentiment is actually starting to rise because blue, the idea that the police are actually supporting positions, supporting positions that would be fundamentally anti-white, you're starting to see how like making these claims as percentages as a whole, greater whole of the population, isn't really matching up to the actual behavior patterns of, right? To make the claim, you're essentially creating the polarization within the conversation and not allowing for any real.
I think that I'm not saying this is a problem, but in both cases, if you take Duvit's example at face value, say, oh, right-wing Jews in the United States should not be part of any social justice or progressive defense, but instead should buy a gun, use the Second Amendment, and get militant. The problem is going to be that they're not going to find allies in the right, because the same right-wing white people are going to be the same people against them having guns or any such thing. On the left, you have the same mirror symmetry. If you say, I want to fight this by saying social censorship, social collective pressure, the social stovepipe, you're going to find the same left-wing anti-Semites are going to be, let's say, pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel, are going to exclude them. And you see a lot of this, a lot of Jews, left-wing progressive Jews in the United States are complaining that they're increasingly being shut out of social spaces where they usually were strong, universities, academic organizations, right? They've been kicked out by left-wing anti-Semites, so basically pro-Palestinian, for example, right? So left-wing and right-wing Jews, almost if anti-Semitism encompasses both sides of the spectrum, it's not really obvious how a right-wing Jew, other than just look after me and my property and buy myself a gun and a dog, right? Versus the left-wing Jew, which is say, well, I guess I have to find a new social organization. You've got the same kind of problem, right? Because the bigotry is actually spanning both sides of the axes, right?
Well, my point was from a right-wing perspective, even a right-wing Jewish perspective, the ADL doesn't really do anything good. They might be well-intentioned, but even in their terms, like even say like a right-wing perspective, you don't need to fight anti-Semitism because people have a right to be anti-Semitic. They have a right to organize anti-Semitically. And say, so what's the right-wing Jew do about anti-Semitism? You don't fight it. You might speak.
No, you fight it by arguing that, you know, and with defending yourself
or supporting your local police department.
But how does that
No,
work?
but you can fight it with the same tactics. You can fight it with words. You write books, you publish tweets, you do the same stuff. You don't
I'm making a point.
whine about
You
it.
don't have to fight it because you have to respect those people's right.
3 days ago in Berlin, a 72-year-old Jewish man was beaten randomly by people who ran away. So how does a 72-year-old Jewish man, on a right-wing perspective, what does he do when he's 72 years old? Does he hope for the best and hope he can shoot against younger assailants?
That's not a question from the right-wing perspective. It's not a question of anti-Semitism. It's just a question of law and order. And if the attack was anti-Semitically motivated is irrelevant to the basic question of law and order.
But that's after the fact for the Jewish person who was beaten and was 72 years old, right?
Well, if it doesn't matter the case. I mean, saying from a right-wing perspective, you don't fight anti-Semitism. You support law and order. You support self-defense. So you don't fight anti-Semitism. People have a right to hate you. People have a right to speak their hate, and you don't have a right to commit a crime.
So you're saying someone has a right to beat up the 70-year-old Jewish man?
No, I said you have the right to hate. Why are you saying such? Of course, I didn't say that. That's a crime.
Okay, but what I'm saying is the crime happens and then you deal with it in law and order as a post-process, right?
You deal with it as a single incident, not as an act of anti-Semitism. There was a crime that was committed. It needs to be solved. You don't need to fight anti-Semitism. If the guy was a part of a hate group who committed it, it doesn't matter. The fact is it's a singular incident of law and order. And from the
that's a very libertarian approach that sounds great in theory, but in practice,
that's why so few Jews are right wing. Because
no, it's nothing. You know, you're
organized as a minority of the right wing.
Since when are you a right winger and speaks for the right?
Libertarian. I mean, libertarians generally considered on the right.
Yeah, you sound like a libertarian, exactly. But libertarianism is silly stuff anyway. So you know, I can't take you seriously. But anyway, what happens in reality is there's an issue. I'm for free speech as well, but there's an issue, which is if 100 people are defaming you, and you're on your own, and everyone has free speech. So what's the problem? You see what I mean? There's a point where if you're in a minority, it's very difficult to defend yourself. And then if 100 people defame you for long enough, someone will punch you in the end.
Yeah, so
This
just
is the
question of law
problem
and
that
order.
you have
That's
to
the
deal
price-
with.
that's
And
the
I'm
price
not
of being-
sure, hold on, I'm not sure how to deal with it, but you have to acknowledge that it's a problem.
You were saying the ADL's methods are,
Oh,
if you're right wing,
forget the ADL.
That's not our methods. That's not a counterproductive method. What the ADL is trying to do against that is not helping. It's making it worse.
I
From a right-wing
agree. But
perspective. They might be good-hearted or good intention, but no, the
Yeah,
ADL is not doing good.
Okay, I don't need
let me
you
hang
to
on, let me
explain a
understand
right-wing
you. Why are you saying?
perspective.
Why are you saying it's not? You're saying that are you invoking the trope that the ADL causes more anti-Semitism, or are you saying it's ineffective?
So what should white Americans do about anti-white agenda that is going on in America?
I gotta say, I don't get the arguments here.
I'm trying to understand the argument as well.
The argument is whether
that
you
you
should
have-
try to deal with how would you deal with the fact that there is an anti-white agenda in America, right? It's the same thing. It literally uses the same tropes as well. Oh, you're muted, Ray.
No, I was just like, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying, like, that's like kind of gets to the point. That's the thing, right? We're talking about it. It's just like the argument doesn't really seem to hold up.
Well, I'll tell you what might help, Raymond, is that if you look at all the data and all the studies, is violence is at the end of a process. The process starts with speech, the process starts with the dehumanization, and these things all occur. And at the end of the pipeline, someone acts. So if you look at, for example, the research done into, let's say, the New Zealand shooter or Anders Breivik or the Tree of Life synagogue or the guy in Buffalo, it's always the same pattern. They're radicalized. They have these ideas and thoughts. These ideas and thoughts are allowed to continue under the guise of free speech. Then they get more and more radicalized, and one and n of them are going to go through the pipeline and then do a Tree of Life. So the question is, do you let that run through by free speech and then wait for the Tree of Life and then wait for the casualties, or do you do what's a preventative measure, which is what the ADL and other organizations do, which is trying to curb it right before it occurs, which is what the argument would be for, or the argument against speech or hate speech would be the result of this is one and n people are going to perform a Tree of Life or an Anders Breivik. So do we stop them before they do that, or are we going to free speech is more important? And then, hey, as long as I'm not the guy who gets shot up in the synagogue, case or right?
Well, I mean, you can take equivalent cases with anti-white agenda, where you can see that hate towards whites is building up in certain communities in America, and then suddenly some kids torture some autistic white boy, and then some other incident happens, and then the police start, investigating these crimes less than other crimes. All this speech matters. So if we just say free speech, I mean, it's a problem. I don't know how to balance it.
You have to be pro wicked behavior, right? So but that's the thing.
Under all circumstances,
you would be allowing speech that even you would not agree with. And you would be saying, yeah, I'm okay with that. And I don't think there's consequences going to occur. You're essentially saying that no consequences have ever occurred from speech. Therefore, you should always be pro free speech. That's like essentially the angle you go there.
Which is just
it doesn't matter whether consequence. You're saying hate speech has to be allowed under all conditions, even if there is consequences. If you're talking a level of criminal speech, the what?
So you want people to die? That's
no, but hate speech has to be allowed under all circumstances, regardless of the consequences. That's the price of freedom. It's just like the Second Amendment and guns. God forbid there was another school shooting, there was another mass shooting.
Freedom.
That's the price of freedom.
You're not talking about freedom. You're talking about liberty. Get your English correct. For goodness gracious. Liberty is the capacity to engage in behaviors that are deemed acceptable by society writ large. That's why we use laws to denote liberties. Freedom is fundamentally non-consequential actions. So as soon as you start getting that part of the English correct,
that's the price
you can actually have a real conversation about it.
And so to say, yes, maybe hate speech leads to violence.
The fact that you can't tell the difference.
Yeah,
maybe the Second Amendment leads to violence. God forbid we will face higher casualty rights. That's the price of freedom. It's worth it in the end.
What do you mean by freedom, though? Freedom is not liberty. I think Raymond's making
Excuse my language, man. That got me fired up.
That's okay. But I think
And we can discuss
Ray,
that.
Ray is very sensitive when it
just
comes
saying,
to
just like,
definitions.
Just saying, like,
Right,
yes,
like,
yes,
whole thing-
Nicholas Cruz, it was his right to have an assault rifle. That was his right, God-given right. Okay, he killed people. God forbid people
God-given
died.
right.
It was upsetting. But no, we are not going to rescind.
Well, it doesn't say in the Torah that he had the right to a gun or anything like this.
Yeah, it says
Well,
It's all a matter of how
the
we.
price of freedom. Just like hate speech, you say, okay, hate speech, and a few people, we might be able to stop some violence. It's not a utilitarian argument. It's an absolute argument to say that we will.
Look, I'm
absolutely
not for.
freedom,
I'm not for.
even if there is a higher cost of death and violence.
Okay. Right. I'm not for any censorship, but if Elon takes the ADL to court, he's going to lose and he's going to devalue his company because they will have so much evidence against him. He will drown. And even if he wins the case, which he's got no chance to, he will destroy his company because everybody will know what Twitter is full of.
He's currently got 2,500 court cases pending now just on the Twitter closure. He's got 2,500 small lawsuits, and now he's going against the California Attorney General. So
I want to see the loop. What about the loop?
Elon is going to have to.
Do you remember the loop?
He has no choice. And it's saying it's not his company; they're a separate company. His ownership of Tesla or his other wealth is most likely protected, and it's only Tesla. It's only X Twitter, and X Twitter might be going bankrupt anyway. So at this point, Elon Musk probably has no choice but to sue because he's at risk of it going bankrupt either way.
Good. I mean, I think Elon. I don't understand this. I think people should go after SpaceX and they should go after Tesla. It doesn't reform his position. Allows assholes on Twitter. I think they should go after all his corporations with a class action lawsuit.
I mean, just like the ADL. The ADL is
God bless ADL.
The American Jewish people are not going to be sued. It's a separate organization. Even the ADL local, it'd probably be the national chapter of the ADL. That even if the ADL lost and had a huge case against them, they wouldn't force the American Jewish people to pay the bill, or likely they wouldn't even force local chapters of the ADL to front the bill. And it's a zero-sum battle because the ADL is not going to back down from their demands for content moderation. And right. Elon Musk's direction of Twitter is unlikely to back down in his lack of desire to do content moderation.
Yeah, so it's going to be zero-sum. It is a zero-sum game. And the question is, I think Raymond and I were speaking earlier about flying and stuff. I mean, he's going not just against the ADL. You can think of the ADL as a proxy for the entire cathedral and most of society. Most of society want their kids to go on Twiter and go like,
what about
hey,
Netanyahu?
Elon Musk and here I see like something about the Holocaust. Right?
What if Netanyahu backs Elon Musk? I mean, which is, even if he doesn't vocally, but I mean, it's somewhat on the silent. I mean, Netanyahu's requested to visit Elon Musk this week.
Yeah, no, I think
they're not going to be discussing content.
He's going to Netanyahu to cover his ass.
No, because Netanyahu and his coalition is one of the biggest victims of content moderation.
But I think he's going to Netanyahu for under PR advice to cover his ass, right?
Well, I mean, Elon Musk has. As far as I know, Elon Musk is using Israeli. I mean, Mossad. You got to get but he's using. Israeli cybersecurity or various. He has partners that Elon Musk is partners with Israelis in multiple X ventures, and I would guess that the Elon Musk's Mossad business partners probably agree with him in his battle against the ADL. The Israeli perspective. He's saying these are whiny American brats, and they need to just man up. Like, oh, boo hoo, you were made fun of. Boo hoo, people are bullying you.
And, it's not exactly like that. I'm glad that you speak for the right and now you speak for Israelis too. It's great. You should be just a world. Okay. You should be a world spokesman. I mean, you like to speak, and you like to speak on behalf of everyone as well. So
people the news.
Yes.
I'm not speaking on behalf. Elon Musk's Mossad business partners or Netanyahu that's visiting this week. But it's factual. Elon Musk has Mossad business partners in X, and Netanyahu is speaking to him this week.
Yeah, I think Netanyahu, if anything, Netanyahu is going to have to ask him to rope it in a little bit, right? Either that
No,
means
they're going to be
X will
talking about their
become
business
like
deal. I mean,
Gap,
he
right?
probably
X will become like Gap or Telegram, where no
Netanyahu is a
one
victim
puts
of the
money on it.
ADL.
Now, look at this.
Netanyahu
The
is not
ADL,
going to.
the ADL is pushing the protest against his
David,
Supreme
is
Court
there, is there,
David, what could happen?
does anyone else get to speak, or you just going to monologue?
It's fine. Let's guys all relax a little bit. So, David, what could happen, right, please? If you look at Gab, for example, if you look at Telegram, they're not going to be money-making businesses. And Elon can keep Twitter X as his pet project. And eventually what's going to happen is he's going to be taken out by Facebook. He's going to be taken out. And mainstream society is going to, but mainstream society, the ADL of proxy, mainstream society are not going to let brand advertisers of Fortune 100 values have their products put side by side with some guy going, the Jews did 9/11. That's just not
like a prognosis. Elon Musk might lose tens of billions of dollars,
but he's not going
already lost
to.
X is likely to remain the most popular platform,
The platform
and he could continue ad infinitum, and it could
But
be
he can continue. I don't think you understand.
tens of billions of dollars.
I don't think you understand. You understand my point. He can continue ad infinitum, but there's going to be no mainstream audience there.
Yep.
I'm not sure that there's little evidence that what you're saying, they're saying Elon Musk might continue to lose money, but whether people are going
He's
to,
already.
I mean, from his statistics, the Twitter is growing right now. More people are joining the network, and Meta is not really competitive. And just saying, it might cost them tens of billions of dollars.
Society is not going to
for him to lose the money in that venture for the benefit of other ventures.
Mainstream society is going to go in the middle of the curve. It's the majority of the bulk of middle America are going to have sensible middle of the road values, and they're not going to want their children to log into society where they're going to see, like, they don't want to see them watching death porn on Telegram, right?
Yeah, Twitter is full of porn as well.
Yeah.
What's that doing there?
Yeah.
Why do I get ads for porn on my feed? Like, I get like some like, and I think, oh, someone liked my post, and I look, and it's some woman with a link to some porn site. What the hell is that?
Well, I'm disappointed with Mossad because personally, I think the Israelis are going to back Musk.
I don't think you understand anything, David, but you don't allow anyone to speak, so it's impossible to say anything.
Like I was hoping that you were going to shed some light on Elon Musk's Mossad business partners or the meeting with Netanyahu this week. Instead, you're basically just repeating the liberal talking points of Ralph.
I haven't said anything. So
wow, liberal.
Are you familiar with Elon Musk's business partners?
Did we accomplish the epistemic gap? Did we bridge that?
I know. I was almost going to take the bait.
What's
going on, David? What are you saying?
Name the Israeli companies that Elon Musk has partnered with in X doing the cybersecurity or various computer technology for.
And you?
I'd have to look it up. I was hoping Mossad would know this stuff. He's always talking about how powerful, saying like you're not even familiar with Elon Musk's Israeli business partners.
No.
What's the point you're trying to make, David? Is that the Israelis going to pressure him, or that he's going to?
Israelis are going to back Elon Musk against the ADL, especially Netanyahu, because Netanyahu and his coalition are right now the biggest.
Then he has to go against left-wing anti-Semitism at that point.
I mean, it's also like the Supreme Court.
They're not going to back.
And then he still supports anti-Semitism.
Netanyahu is going to go against the entire base of the American Jewish network that's going to be pro-ADL.
Wow. I can offer my opinion. I can speculate about what Netanyahu is going to say to Elon, which is ADL is far left. However, you need to calm it down a little bit. That's what Bibi will say to him.
But what is he going to say to the public? What is he going to say to the general public? Is he going to openly defend Elon Musk against anti-Semitism? No. What's he going to say to the Israeli public?
He's going to say diplomatic words that he will try to convey that Elon Musk understood the message and the ADL understood the message. Whether they do or not, it doesn't matter. That's what he will say. I mean, he says that Joe Biden is his best friend, which he obviously isn't. So what Bibi says and what happens is two different things.
Well, it's, I mean, he's not getting an invite to the White House still, but he's getting an
Yeah.
invite to.
Yeah,
Elon
no,
Musk.
David,
But
another
it still claims that Joe Biden is his best buddy
But
for
given
40
another wild
years.
card, maybe you're
It
not
doesn't
considering.
disturb him.
But given another wild card you might not be considering, and I don't really mean a wild card, is the progressive left, the strength of the progressive left's rage at Twitter right now. They're going to operate independently of the ADL.
Yeah, but they're already doing everything they could do in terms of advertisement,
Oh, yeah, they haven't
boycott,
even become
public pressure. I mean, there's nothing new. Like in terms of the ADL,
No.
is basically been doing everything they could do for the last few years. There's nothing more that the American Jewish community, American left could do.
Well, not the American Jewish community, the progressive white left in the United States.
Well, there's
Have you
really
watched-
nothing more that they
video
can do.
after
It's like this
video?
battle has
They have
been.
most of the social power. What do you mean? What
Well, I mean,
can
they
do?
already have waged the, you're saying the ADL might have been the front organization, loudest voice in front, but the advertiser boycott has already been in full effect since Elon Musk took over.
Yep.
And the pressure to lobby Washington for more content moderation / censorship has really been one of the top
Biden wins another
for the
term.
past like 3 or 4 years.
He's in so much trouble, Miles. Right?
Well, he's not in any
progressive
trouble
right wing.
besides for financial. Elon Musk is not in any trouble besides for the financial loss that he's taking, which is.
I never put you down as a Musk
You
word.
actually didn't listen to any of the stream. I'm just convinced you just didn't listen to anything we were talking about earlier, which is fine.
Well, I listened to all of it. I'm just saying that if you say like, okay, you think he's a bad guy and immoral, but in terms of like legal or financial, Elon Musk is not in any trouble right now.
You genuinely didn't listen with that explanation. We pointed out that Musk made an inconsistent metaphysical position, right? So he made an inconsistent position morally, right? Because it wasn't matching what he said he was trying to do, and then behaves in a manner that seems to be antithetical to what he was talking about, and then has decided to engage in lawfare with the ADL and the state of California to say, I will not submit a TOS, terms of service report, right? And that means that he's not only picking a fight with the ADL, trying to tell people to start engaging in legal conflicts with the ADL and in the state of California, which means he is now going to be suspect to investigation by the federal government for violating civil rights.
Not him. I mean, saying the X company.
That's the whole point of what we were talking about.
But
because
saying,
he is
inaccurate. Saying, is he going to be subject, or saying his one company, Twitter X, is going to be subject?
Him and the company at the same time. You already see it with the cathedral going into full effect, utilizing the media to effectively defame him in many ways. You're already seeing emergent properties from the media hitting him from multiple fronts with multiple news organizations putting out multiple hit pieces against him. So it is coming after him.
I mean,
it is coming after him. And in that regard, would you let me finish my point? In that regard, he then starts to get a black mark against his entire record, which then means that a lot of these Fortune 100 companies don't want to touch any other brand he would have his hands on, which means he doesn't just lose one company in the short. He doesn't just lose a single company in the short term. He loses all of them in the long term, because he starts getting the stain on his record, right? That he essentially ends up being pro-anti-Semitism. And you have to be very careful about that. So it's not just a short-term difference. It's also a long-term consequence that occurs as well.
Well, I mean, the multiple points. Like, no, I don't think that he's going to end up being pro-anti-Semitism, because like the Israelis, Netanyahu, right-wing Jews, his Jewish business partners are going to back him and say they might disagree with his policy for how he's handling X, but he personally is not anti-Semite. There's very little evidence that he personally is an anti-Semite. Almost every Jew who knows him, even Walter Isaacson, who just wrote his book, has projected that he's an anti-Semite. And the question for his multiple business, Tesla's like $250 right now. His net worth is near the highest it's ever been, about $250 billion. That and the media has basically been all out against him for over 5 years now. It's not like the media is stepping up and going out more against him. Like, like I read the New York Times, every article for the last few years has been against him and Tesla, and it's still been thriving. Even Starlink and these various things. Even Blinken was, like the CNN, where it was hesitant to criticize Musk, and so he might lose all the money. X might go bankrupt. He might lose $40 billion. He could probably take the hit in terms of Tesla and his other businesses being affected by it. That is yet to be shown. And my personal read into Elon Musk's personal interest is that because all the media has been against Elon Musk for multiple years and against his companies, that's the main reason he bought Twitter, is for an alternative media source to promote his business. And you follow Elon Musk's Twitter feed, most of what he does is promote Tesla and SpaceX, and it could be worth it. So if he loses the case against the ADL, it's not going to cost him that much money. Maybe he'll have to pay the ADL's legal fees. Maybe they'll try to sue him. Even if Elon Musk lost like $1 billion.
He's got court cases now pending all over the EU and Australia and everywhere else. They're not going to stop coming for him. The cathedral will not stop.
Yeah, but saying so, X would just they're against his company.
Forget Elon. X goes bankrupt. It's job done.
Yes, that's the point. And now he has that stain on his record for the rest of his life, that he caused X to fail because he decided to take on this. And now how many other companies are going to want to go into a venture capital position where they actually want to help him start?
He was forced to buy X. I'm saying people
was forced to buy X. He wanted to buy X. What do you mean he was forced?
He tried to back out of the offer.
Dude, it's 275,000 euros.
He didn't want to buy it, and then the
court. Dude, it's 275,000 euros fine in Germany per message. When you do you've transmitted Holocaust now, that's the European law, and it's enforced in Germany.
David wants to be Elon's lawyer. That's what he wants. He's auditioning for the part.
I mean, so I'm not saying Elon Musk goes bankrupt. I'm saying X and the play of X against the cathedral loses, is my claim. Either Musk is going to change his way, or X is going to run out of time.
Yeah.
Well, why would the Germans give a shit about space?
I mean, even if you
I'd like him to speak more about the loop. Less about Jews and more about the loop. What happened? David,
how much is
what happened to the loop
right now with their policy?
What happened to the loop?
He bought it for 44 million. It's worth 15 as of May this year.
And if he takes the ADL to court, it'll be worth 5.
That's money he already lost. That. How much is he losing through the continuing operation of it?
David, where's the loop?
Could he possibly lose if he lost every single one?
What happened to the loop? I want to hear about the loop. Tell me about the loop.
Yeah, we hear you, Monster. But David, I think you misunderstand what my claim is. My claim is X and Twitter and the cathedral. Not Elon Musk. Elon Musk will survive, but X. How is X going to? Let me ask you this: how is X going to survive a relentless EU lawsuits?
What's the worst case loss?
X was lost.
What, I mean, how much could he lose if he loses all these lawsuits, or what happens if he shuts down? What happens if he just shuts down X in those European countries?
Listen carefully, David. I'm not talking about Elon Musk. I'm talking about X.
Yeah, because they're going to. I mean, I'm sure he has protection. It's a company. They're not going to sue him. They're going to sue the company.
Correct.
What's the biggest loss that X could lose if he loses?
The biggest loss.
What happens if he just shuts down? What happens if he just shuts down operation in Europe?
Imagine being David's teacher.
What happens if he just
just for a second? Just for a second, let's have a moment's silence for David's teachers.
Because you're not. Let's talk about the facts and the actual consequences of the actions.
Yeah, so
it's like it's going to be catastrophic. I want to know what happens if he loses every single one of these lawsuits. How much does it cost him?
It costs him Twitter.
How does it cost him Twitter if he loses all these?
What do we care about Elon Musk all of a sudden? What do I care?
This is the topic of the show. That's why I came on to talk about.
No, but we talk about his lawsuit against the ADL and that business.
Elon Musk from the company Twitter. Elon Musk is fine. He still has his personal web, but Twitter is gone.
I'm sure you can get a job after all this.
You didn't explain how Twitter is going to be gone even if he loses every single lawsuit. Even if he loses every single
275,000 euros.
If Twitter's operating, let's say Twitter right now is operating on a $500 million a year loss. And so Elon Musk said he could operate Twitter. He could lose another $500 million every single year.
Okay, so you're saying Elon Musk is going to lose $500 million with no implications companies every year because he's going to stand on some free speech against the entire European Union.
It would be him and
the most powerful media platform in the world. That because Tesla
more powerful than the German government.
It would be him and Keith Woods against the world.
More powerful than the EU. Do it more powerful than the EU.
Even if he has to shut down Twitter and the whole EU.
There you go. That's my claim. I think my claim is not Elon Musk's personal net worth. I can give a shit about his personal net worth. The question is the move for Twitter a losing move for Twitter? And I say there.
No, I'm saying Elon Musk could just shut down X in the EU.
There you go. That's my claim. Yeah, he shuts down.
I mean, that's not going to cause the downfall of X. The EU is a minority, maybe like 15% of X users, anyways. You could just completely.
You're saying he
breaks the
entire global network Twitter from the EU.
So you're saying he won against the cathedral by shutting down X in all of Europe? Is that the argument?
You're using the word like a win or loss, but you're claiming that like something catastrophic is going to happen. So
that's
even
the whole
taking
point.
Your scenario,
I
could see Elon Musk just closing X in the EU. If he loses the case against California and he has to put out this moderation, he could probably just do that. If he loses the case against the ADL, since he's the one suing, it's probably not going to be a big financial loss to him. He might just have to pay the ADL's legal fees.
Right.
So I don't see any of this as a big loss. So the main issue is operating loss right now. Like what it's worth right now, he's already lost that money. So the question is the operating loss. How much is Elon? How much is
let me help you out, David. This week, the federal government in Germany is instigating a procedure for suspected systemic failures under the hate speech takedown law with $50 million per case. He is screwed in Germany. In Germany, the one thing you don't do is promote Holocaust denial. If there's one country you don't do it in, it's Germany. And the Germans, the Jewish organization in Germany, are moving steadily, as are the EU organizations, going, you're going to take down those tweets by Andrew Anglin, by Keith Woods. You're going to take them down, or you're going to pay a lot of money.
He might be able to protect himself. It might be cheaper for him just to shut down X in Germany.
Well, not Germany, the EU.
If I were advising Elon Musk,
Germans will be forced to go out.
Shut down X in the EU.
But that's the whole EU.
Still have $1 billion. Just shut down X in the EU.
They will have to talk. They will have to start talking to each other.
Okay.
I don't think you're missing the point. It's like if he loses.
You don't think he could just shut down X? Why can't he just shut down X in Germany and the EU?
God.
But not Germany,
because then it stops doing what it's supposed to do,
correct,
which is encourage conversation. And if you're so pro free speech, him shutting down the company should be seen as a negative consequence of, yes, it should be seen as an L. So why are you considering it a W?
They're going to sue him and charge him huge fees because he's not content monitoring the way that they want.
May I say something?
In those countries, it's not going to be the end of.
May I say something? Anyone who joins a campaign by Keith Woods is a moron, and he's onto trouble like he's never had before.
And maybe just a quick question for you, David. Maybe it's just our economics are different. Do you think the EU's GDP is larger than the US or smaller?
Say it again.
Do you think the EU's GDP is larger than the United States or smaller?
What, combined as a total?
The EU is a single market. It's a single market, yeah.
But I mean, how much is Tesla's supply chain based in Europe?
Tesla, the entire United States, Tesla, all of it, the entire United States. The EU is larger than the United States as a single market. He just loses.
Yeah, how popular is X? How popular is X in the EU?
I don't know. I mean,
it's not particularly popular in Twitter. X is not that widely used in the EU, anyway.
So I think,
and they're talking like a larger battle for his front companies of Tesla. That largely X and Tesla is avoiding the EU. Most of the supply chain is not through the EU. Most of his suppliers.
I'm talking about Tesla. I'm talking about X. I don't give a shit about Tesla.
But I'm saying that Elon Musk could have a battle against the EU, could align with the best interest of Tesla as a company.
What is Hebrew for shifting the goalpost? What I'm saying is, I keep talking about Twitter and X, and you keep moving to Elon Musk and Tesla.
But because we're talking about his Elon
Musk has been a complete moron here.
You're talking about his
he's joined the campaign by a complete idiot, by a total nutcase on the fringes of the far right. I mean, he's an idiot.
This is my fault. This is my fault. I was making the statement earlier. David's right to call this out. I was making the statement earlier that yes, if X does shut down, Elon does suffer longer term consequences. He may not have a full loss of his entire net worth, but I did make that claim earlier, which technically would be true because he would be engaging with social power, and that's part of the reason he's engaging in the fight with the ADL in the first place, because he thinks that that he has money, therefore, as a economic elite, he can engage in social power. And I did make that statement, and I apologize because I realized that's causing the goalposts to go everywhere all at the same time. So I will
No, it's not
retract
your
any
fault,
statement I
Ray.
made earlier.
And you're
David will do it
hypothesizing-
no matter
you're
what. David will do
hypothesizing
this no matter
consequences
what. It
that
doesn't
may or
matter
may
what
not
you
be there.
say.
I mean, say you're claiming that
David, you talked for like 70% of the time. Do you realize there's 4 people here?
That's why I said, like, I apologize. Look at what I started. I just
David,
So
you just
but
constantly
you
talk.
both- but
You just
forget the
do
meta.
calm it down.
You guys keep telling each other you talk too much, and that doesn't really help.
I
David,
barely
is
said a
our
word.
Our claim is that X suffers. Are you saying that? Are you making the claim that Elon Musk is going to keep running a loss leader, if you like? He's going to run him to the ground. If he loses the EU, that's okay. And what happens to X? It becomes like Gab or something? It becomes like Telegram, where it's only right-wing notches on it? Or what actually happens next?
No, I don't think that happened. I was saying that Elon Musk could wage a global cultural war through X. It might cost him. I mean, we have to look at the numbers. Like, how much will it cost him a year to continue this battle? Can he cover the cost of continuing running this battle? And what benefit is there to him and his companies to run this battle?
Okay, so you're saying he's going to.
You're making these like catastrophic predictions that like, everyone's going to leave X. It's going to become a cesspool. It's like, no, there's still hundreds of millions of people that use X. There's not
X
that
is
many.
already a cesspool of stupidity. Like, that's the thing. I've been spending the past month on X, and it is a mess. It is a complete mess. Nobody is consistent about any of their positions, and everybody is starting to be incredibly conspiratorial, both on the left and the right in the conversation.
Yes.
And nobody is able to have a real conversation with what they're actually observing, and they just keep trying to confirm bias.
It's basically now
every observation they're making. It is mass shit posting. It is a completely terrible place to be. And I have been trying to reach across both sides of the aisle, trying to get people to agree on things that you're actually observing.
If you read what Mark Zuckerberg wrote, he said it's really important to bring a middle ground back in, which is a motivation, for example, between threads. Ultimately, if people want the boring version of Facebook and the ad-supported middle of the ground, Mark Zuckerberg is no fool, says, and he's not a stupid, he's not a poor man, says, no, he believes the large bulk of the market sits in the middle. And what Elon has done, he's gone for the shit posting, like, I want to be 12 and be on 4chan crowd. Now,
he created incentives, dude. He created incentives. He pays people for engagement. The best way to engage people is to enrage.
Yep. He incentivized polarization. So he essentially took that bell curve of that moderate bell curve, the center of the population space, and then just split it straight in half. So now you have these extreme polarized bubbles that are occurring in the conversation.
Making an interesting, stronger claim, which I can appreciate. It's a good argumentation claim. David is saying that maybe Elon is a true warrior for free speech, and he's a true.
No, I did not say that at all.
A global
I'm just arguing about his collective best interest, not about anything ideological.
No, but suppose he's a global culture jihadi, like you said. He's actually.
No, I'm talking about let's claim just his goal to get to Mars. Let's say that the main reason Elon Musk is doing this is because he really wants to get to Mars. And
I'd love to see
I'd love to see him get there and not find a way back.
Some sort of jihadi war for higher values. This is what Walter Isaacson said, that the main thing driving Elon Musk is
he will take a bunch of Jewish scientists to get him back on Earth.
Well, I'm saying that, like, no, I did not say what Ralph said, and according to the expertise, according to Walter Isaacson, new book, the biggest thing driving Elon Musk is electric cars and getting to Mars.
Right.
It's not idealism. Elon Musk.
I want to hear about the Hyperloop. I want him to talk more about the Hyperloop.
Elon Musk to Mars. I would love nothing more than see him on Mars myself.
Yeah, I mean, you're just talking largely nonsense and conjecture about your random psychoanalysis that has no basis.
Right. Deep. That was deep, David. Say some more.
I never knew you were such an Elon bro, man.
I'm not. I'm relatively neutral. I haven't given my own opinion. I'm just trying to give some semi-objective analysis about what may happen. Trying to look like, what's the worst case scenario for Elon Musk if everything you say is right?
He gets
and you have
gets
this, like,
assassinated by
catastrophe,
an
like
SJW.
everything's going to crumble for him
He
because
gets
he's suing the
assassinated by
ADL.
an SJW.
It's like, well, no, I don't see that. I don't see how your arguments are leading
Who,
to.
who said everything is going to crumble for him? Was that? Can you tell me the timestamp?
That's not the language that they use, but I mean, that's been the general
No, I said he's
gist
gonna
of
damage.
Ray
I
and
said
Ralph's,
I believe I said he's.
your program, that like Elon Musk is on the wrong track. If he doesn't get off it, everything's
Oh
going to
yeah,
crumble
well,
for him.
Yeah, he is.
As where I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
no, I don't think. I think even if he stays on this track, the consequences for him will be relatively minor.
But consequences for him personally, I don't care about his.
For him and the company. I mean, but because the consequence for the company is dependent on his ability to continue to take financial losses.
Okay, so you're saying he runs a $100 million loss a year every year. He's running 100 million loss because he's on a cultural global jihadi mission to liberate the
No,
world.
I mean, I didn't add that conjecture. I would rather say because he wants to get to Mars. But if you want to put like it's because you want to imply that he's doing it for whatever reason he's doing it, doesn't matter why he's doing it. But if he's willing to continue to do it and it's only going to cost him a few $100 million a year, he could do it for another 50 years.
Okay. So you're saying he's willing to pay 5-10 billion just on after the law, because it looks like if you use the
it doesn't matter his reasoning. I mean, you're insisting on like trying to understand his reasoning for willing to do it.
I think his behavior.
You agree that it doesn't necessarily matter his reasoning if he's willing to do it.
Well, opposite. I'm agreeing with you. I'm not looking at his internal motivations, his internal state, and his intentional stance. I'm looking at the actual behavior. His behavior looks like a guy who's panicking.
How is his behavior looking like a guy who's panicking?
He's going to go against the federal government and the Attorney General of California and saying, I'm not going to submit a report. That sounds like petulant, childish behavior. He's not going to win.
I mean, that's a necessity of running a large company is battling these lawsuits with the government. He might win this. He might go to court. It might delay it a few years. The U.S. government is facing difficulty with the election coming up. But it's like, no, that's the due diligence and the requirement of heading a company is willing to go to court against the government.
Right, against the federal government on things like
civil rights. Didn't Microsoft fought the federal? Every major corporation fights the federal government.
So you're saying that Elon Musk?
Just stop at that point. You agree that every major corporation fights the federal government in court for decades?
Absolutely, yeah.
On multiple cases, most major corporations have 100 cases at a given time against the federal government.
What they can't do is while that thing is happening, they're still subject to the law. The law,
an injunction.
The current law stands unless you challenge it and win. But while you do that for years, you're still subject to current law. The law is not suspended because you take the government to court. The law
that's to be determined by the courts whether.
But every day the law
get an injunction. It's dependent on the
case. The horse, right? So I might challenge the United States government in federal court all the way to Supreme Court, going, for example, I want the right to allow abortions, but if the abortion law is illegal, you're currently held to the law, or you are subject to.
You've been talking about business compliance. So if you're talking about a level of compliance where his company is not in compliance with the current statute, I didn't prepare like the legal analysis here, but I just say that I'm sure there's hundreds of statutes that he's currently not in compliance, and those all go to court. And some of them will have different size penalties. Some of them will win. Some of them will lose. Some of them will pay the penalty. And that's what you need a legitimate legal analysis to say, well, let's say he's not in compliance. What's the maximum penalty should he lose?
It's quite heavy in this case.
What's quite heavy?
Per message.
I mean, you're talking about with the EU, not with California.
Oh, with California as well.
I mean, a number. Let's hear a number.
I don't know what the actual number is, but it's per message, which is quite interesting, and it's cumulative.
And you're saying it could potentially, if they chalk it up like that, could be hundreds of billions of dollars. Technically, they could chalk it up in a way like the EU, where all of a sudden Elon Musk is being held liable for hundreds of billions of dollars.
Goes swimmingly, and EU just goes through, and he keeps paying for this out of his teeth. And if I was a total Elon bro,
what was Amazon found? Wasn't Amazon found guilty of $20 billion or something in the EU or something like that? I mean, one of the cases like Amazon or like Microsoft found them liable for tens of billions of dollars.
Yeah, Microsoft had to pay. Yeah.
I mean, at the end they didn't pay that amount, but I mean, maybe if they even paid, even Amazon or Microsoft that paid over $1 billion to the EU.
And most of those on commercial contract clauses, right?
But I mean, they did. The EU did sue Microsoft for tens of billions of dollars, and at the end of the day, they paid maybe even more than $1 billion.
Yeah. He's going to keep paying them.
And Amazon is currently also being sued by the EU for tens of billions
But those
of dollars.
who breach, for example, monopoly law and market control law. These are laws that are per message. The German law is per message. The fine is per message.
Yeah, so
and
you have to have a jurisdictional expert.
To go like, hey, the Holocaust didn't happen, or Andrew Anglin to say.
Well, that's why I talked about shutting down in Germany. So you'd have to have a legal expert. Let's say a German court found Elon Musk guilty for billions of dollars and he refused to pay. Would they have some sort of international ability to collect on it, or could they just prevent X from operating in Germany?
They'd have to go for he'd have to defend the assets in court. Yeah, he'd have to leave the United.
And he may be able to win that, and so Germany could shut down X in Germany.
You keep saying Germany. The EU is a single market. It would apply to all EU 27 nations. Single law, single common markets.
And like, how many years do you think it'd take for this court case to go through?
I don't know, but it seems like
you agree that'd be years. Like even this case before something like that happened, before it'd be years.
Well, it seems that the Germans are terribly upset about Holocaust now.
Well, I mean, you say the Germans. You're saying the German court, whether the Germans themselves are maybe
I
not.
think he's going to have a hard time finding lawyers.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to find much support in, for example, with the Germans for Holocaust now, right? I mean, there's, I'm
sure it'd be easy for him to.
I'm sure. Listen, why
you don't do it in Germany. I don't know if you've been in Germany. But if you see Kyle, for example, in Germany, you're going to jail. It's not a country that looks at Holocaust and Nazism with a frivolous outlook, right?
Yeah, they really believe the Holocaust happened.
Yeah,
strange.
You're talking about You're talking about his failure to do content moderation.
I'll tell you, David. Let me tell you the story.
No one's accusing Elon. You're talking about his failure to do content moderation.
Sometimes it's not about. Sometimes it's cultural sentiment. Let me give you an anecdote. I went deep inside the Reichstag because my friend could take me in there. And deep outside the Reichstag is a very small little alcove where they have this very personal, hand-crafted little box for each MP. And it's a matter of both shame and honor that the entire Nazi area ones are painted black. That's how much they care about what the Germans did to the Jews. So when you come around and Keith Woods and others are going to be like, hey, get the Jews. Germany's like the wrong country. You can pull that shit off in Florida, maybe, right?
Yeah, but you're veering off the subject because that's not the issue at hand. You're talking about failure to remove that content from his platform. You're not talking about in how much liable can they hold. So even if they have something on the book that each instance of something like that's visible in Germany, that he could potentially pay this fine. Likely that court case would go for years. Unlikely the International Court of Appeals or assessments would forcefully take the punishment. It'd be more likely that Elon Musk, like I said, would shut down operations in the EU. And then I'm thinking, like, for his larger personal self-interest with SpaceX and Tesla, the EU is probably his competition anyway.
Do you believe that Elon is a free speech absolutist? Do you believe he's doing this on a free speech reason?
I'm trying to get a hold. I mean, hopefully this week I'll read Walter Isaacson's Elon Musk book, but I'm not sure anything about Elon Musk's personal motivations. From what I heard about Walter Isaacson, the main motivating factors that Elon Musk are actually engineering feats, such as electric cars and getting than some sort of free speech idealism. I'm more likely to think that his larger calculation has something to do with getting to Mars than some sort of ideal about free speech absolutism.
Forget the Elon filleting for a second and then getting to Mars. But let me actually point to something just from a few weeks ago. The self-proclaimed free speech absolutist Elon Musk tried to silence independent researchers in the CCPH. So this guy who claims he's all for free speech, he claims he's a free speech absolutist, is bullying the CCPH. He is literally trying to stop the CCPH recording every single violation in X of hate speech. So this man who says, oh, I'm all for absolute free speech, I'm Mr. Musk. Look at me, boys, I'm all for free speech, bros, is actually literally trying to bully the independent.
So he's a hypocrite. I mean, what's the crime of being a hypocrite?
I'm just trying to work out how much.
So what? I mean, it's like he's acting in his own best interest. He's hypocritical. I'm not your psychoanalysis. I don't necessarily.
He's obviously an idiot. Anyone who follows a campaign by Keith Woods is not worth talking about so much.
Well, I mean,
He's an idiot. He made a huge
he's
mistake.
autistic. He's an engineering genius, and that's why I don't think free speech absolutism is what's actually motivating.
Yeah, so he should stick to engineering and get his nose out of business he doesn't understand,
Well,
obviously.
that's what
And now,
Walter,
hey, you
Walter
talked a lot.
Isaacson said,
Man,
is
I've
that
been quiet
Elon
for
Musk
like
views
20
Twitter
minutes.
as an engineering platform.
Are you going to let anyone else
I
speak?
never knew
You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You don't
I
even
didn't
know
speak for
about Elon
20
Musk
minutes.
because
Okay,
you
I'll
don't have
mute
anything
myself
useful to
again.
add.
I was quiet for 20 minutes.
You don't
I'll
have
be
anything useful to add.
take 20 more minutes to go
I'll
for
take
it.
a break.
Okay.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
guys,
Go ahead and
relax,
speak your
relax,
nonsense, even though you have nothing
But
to add.
both of you like to shout at each other. But so if you that's a fair point, David. So you're saying his motivation isn't, or David ran away.
He just
I
has
never knew David was such an Elon, bro.
Yeah, I mean, what is this? I mean, the discussion is more about what's happening that concerns us. I'm sure Elon will be fine. I'm sure he'll always be able to get a job.
Yeah, like all I was originally saying in regards to the entire conversation, and this is where I realized I think I kind of just derailed the whole conversation unintentionally, of course. But I was essentially making the statement that he's trying to take a fight with the cathedral, and unfortunately, that there's going to be long-term consequences to some of the things that he wants to engage in. Under the guise of him standing for something like free speech absolutism, which unfortunately isn't a winning line, because as we have seen with all of human history, if you just open the Bible, you realize God's not a free speech absolutist. You can't make that claim that God stands for free speech. He's not. He's he considers the lies of the serpent to cause Eve to partake in the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil as a sin. Therefore, the language of the devil should not have been allowed in the first place. That can't possibly make him a free speech absolutist. Therefore, standing for the position means you have to be willing to allow things that you would normally actually be considering abhorrent under the presupposition that it's not actually going to lead to a long-term consequence. And if it does lead to a consequence, we should already have systems in place to arbitrate for it. The whole point of engaging in the censorship is to prevent the behavior in the first place.
And maybe let's just double the David Goliath story and invert it. Who's David and who's Goliath? Just read this. He's going after the CCDH because they are proving the volume of tweets containing slurs have risen by 200%. They're showing that tweets linking LGBT grooming has doubled. They're challenging Twitter for 20 million from toxic accounts. They're showing that paid for verification is spreading disinformation. They're basically exposing his ass, right? They're exposing his ass, and what does he do, Mr. Free Speech Absolutism? He tries to bully them and shut them down. Now, if you understand how the cathedral works, you're not going to win this game. They're never going to stop, right? And the more you continue this platform, the more the situation is going to get worse and worse. But I appreciate the Elon bros don't really get this picture yet. But I'm so surprised. I never knew David was such an Elon bro. I'm touched. I'll be right back.
I'm not Elon, bro. I mean, you're the one who's. I mean, basically, you're all talking nonsense. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of the situation. I haven't even expressed my own personal opinion, so I just have to correct your infactual statements or decipher your coded language to just understand what's going on.
I'll be back in 2 minutes. Be nice to each other. Be kind to each other.
No, I'm not sure that Elon Musk
I was just enjoying the 3 seconds
at all.
He didn't speak.
I mean, I could assume he's going for his own self-interest, but his own self-interest is not necessarily idealistic. So I'm more likely to assume his own self-interest is related to his other companies and the new information that Walter Isaacson put through in his biography of what drives him.
I don't know. I don't read biographies about people I don't really care about.
That's why you don't know what you're talking about.
I don't really need to. It's very simple for me. I see a
guy. It's very
who
simple for you to
obviously
just make up nonsense and have no idea what you're talking about. We all know. Everyone who listens to this knows that it's very easy for you to just make up nonsense.
It's very easy. Anyone who follows Keith Woods is a moron. He doesn't know what the hell is going on. I don't need to read a whole book. If you see someone not managing to start their car, and as soon as they started, they bang in a tree, you don't need to read the book about them to know they can't drive. Okay?
So let's get back. I mean, if Massad's the only one here, no offense, Ray. What's up with Elon Musk's Israeli business partners?
What about it? Why is this important at all? I don't get it.
Why
The point
are
is
Israeli
that,
companies teaming up with Elon Musk in X right now? Mentioning
Okay.
yes,
So
yes,
I
they
would
are probably. I don't know. You tell me.
I would like for it to be explained, since apparently I do not understand this. I just want to make sure that we are clear on this. I would like for it to be explained. Are you trying to communicate a hypocritical position on the declaration that he's essentially picking a fight with the ADL? I am curious what you're talking about, where
I
you're
don't care about
trying to go with
hypocrisy.
this.
No, I mean I don't. I mean I just assume that Elon Musk is operating in his own best interest, and it's not necessarily idealistic. And the reason he's going to battle with the ADL is not idealistic. It's simply for his own best interest, the direction he wants to take the platform. And the ADL is the leading voice pushing for content moderation. So the question is, well, I don't know. The question is, I mean, so just factual that Elon Musk's partnering up cybersecurity, various multiple different companies, Israeli. Netanyahu's meeting with Elon Musk, from all details, had nothing to do. I mean, it might have to do with X, but not to do with the ADL and content moderation, but with the Mossad companies that are doing his cybersecurity and various elements. So I'm conjecturing that I think that a certain strand of the right wing is going to take Elon Musk's side against the ADL, maybe even against the EU. But I'm just trying to get, like, if you just look it up, so it's factual. Elon Musk is partnering with Israeli tech companies to handle X. He fired 80% of the personnel, and he's replacing a lot of them with Israelis. So I mean, if you want to add in, like, I mean, because you're all caught up in Elon Musk's motivations and his idealism or hypocrisy, if that's how you see the world. Fine. But why is Elon Musk? Why is Elon Musk? Did he get rid of 80% of the old regime's employees? He's replacing them with Israelis.
I am convinced you actually still really don't listen to anything I'm saying, but that's okay. So I'm actually asking if you're thinking we're being hypocritical. That's what I was trying to get to, is if you think we were being hypocritical in our understanding of the position.
I assume hypocrisy is natural, so I don't think in that way, like, oh, he's being hypocritical. I just always assume all humans are always hypocritical. It's the nature of humans to be hypocritical. We act in our own self-interest, and although we might have ideals,
finish the point.
So I just not thinking that way. I'm not like, oh, is he being hypocritical right now? Like, if you were like, well, of course you're human. We're all hypocritical. That's my view on that issue.
Okay, so the whole point of the stream, and I think this is where it's like we have to kind of go back to the beginning, because the whole point of the stream is that we're talking about how Elon Musk is taking a hypocritical position, and that he is making a declarative statement that he is pro-free speech, right? And is willing to engage in attempting to censor or allow people that are inherently censoring the ADL's position.
I mean, you feel if you demonstrate that Elon Musk is being like hypocritical, you won. You set out to demonstrate Elon Musk is being hypocritical, and you demonstrated that. I agree he's being hypocritical, therefore you won.
Again, you're still not even allowing me to get to the full point, but yes, we know we are correct. That's the whole point, is we know we're correct about that. He is being hypocritical in this position, because it is impossible to be a free speech absolutist and then still allow something that is contrary to your position on something in an ideological bubble. Correct. Now, one of the things that I'm really confused by is what the Israelis even have to do with the whole thing. Yes, there is anti-Semitism on the platform, and just because he is siding with Israelis, that doesn't. He's already got an entire portion of the right in both America and in the EU that is already like anti-Semitic. It's irrelevant, even if he's
replacing the employees that he fired.
I got a Persian guy working for me. Do you think therefore I support Tehran's?
I don't. Yeah, that's where the conversation, I think, is going off the rails here, because I don't see.
Think it matters. I mean,
yeah, it's not a correlative
your main
position.
point was to demonstrate that Elon Musk is being hypocritical, and therefore, like, you're just like in La La Land, like, I won. I proved he's hypocritical in taking your victory lap, and you don't even care whether he's replacing that. That doesn't even matter to you.
That's not part of the point we're trying to make in the first place. I don't know why you want to conflate that. That's why that's why I've been
if your only
you have
point
to
is-
understand that
because
David
I don't
likes
have an
nothing more
argument,
than to
your
wind
point
you
was
up.
because okay, you win, you prove that Elon Musk is hypocritical. I'm saying, well, so what? He's hypocritical. Let's move on to the next issue. As it seems like you're like, no, that's the only issue I want
You
to discuss.
did not
Elon Musk a
annotate you
hypocrite or
wanted
not.
to move on to the next issue. You just moved on to it under the assumption that it had to do with what we were talking about before. That's the part that's really strange to me.
Well, I don't agree.
That's the part I've realized is now
Obviously-
really strange in
Well, I
this
mean, Ralph
conversation.
messaged me about this show, and like he didn't necessarily tell me. Like, I mean, I guess like I'm at if you're Ralph's new co-host
I'm
or
just
something like that. But he's like, no, we will only be discussing whether Elon Musk is a hypocrite or
That's the
not.
whole point.
Everything else is nothing to do with the topic.
And we were pointing out that he's essentially making a fight with the ADL. And then you tried to make the statement that he is being essentially anti-Jew by going against the ADL. That's where and then the fact that he is siding with right-wing Jews from Israel is somehow canceling the fact that he's still behaving in the manner that he's behaving publicly.
And also this nonsense about the position of right-wing Jews.
For one side to win
That
or not.
David suddenly represents Israeli right wing. I mean, he's got no clue. He just says things that he read in some paper. He thinks he knows. It's so funny.
Well, yeah, this is publicly. I'm not connected with these Israeli companies that Elon Musk is hiring to run X. But it was public.
I thought you were speaking about the Israeli right. You
Yeah,
keep changing. I don't know. It's just inconsistent. You're inconsistent and incoherent, David.
So maybe I just didn't.
I know that you read something and you feel like you know about it, and you're giving us a speech about the stuff you read, but it doesn't really
Are
do
you
it. You know?
disagreeing that Elon Musk, who fired 80% of the old regime's employees, is replacing a good percent of them with Israelis?
What is a good percent? And how is this
Well, he's not
relevant?
gonna-
Let's say
let's
say that he hired 200 Israelis. Okay, what the hell is this? How the
what the 80%?
dude? Can you
what the
stop,
80% of
please?
Twitter's
You're
old staff
so
was doing,
tedious.
He could replace with a handful of Israeli companies.
Let's say he hired a handful of Israelis. He hired 9 Israelis. Do you think that is of any significance to Israeli right wingers?
Yeah, I think that's probably partially.
No, it's not.
Reading
No,
about
no, we don't even know about it. We don't know about these 9. Okay? It's just talking in irrelevance. You read something in the New York Times, you think you know something. You know zilch. The New York Times is like written for babies. The New York Times is a baby magazine. It's a baby magazine for morons.
Are you rejecting? Are you rejecting that? That's one of the things that Elon Musk has done since he's purchased Twitter is partnering with Israeli tech
I'm
companies.
rejecting your presentation of it and of its importance. It's completely irrelevant. It's just a point you've made about 600 times, and it's a tiny, unimportant point. I'd like to ask, what if he was suing an organization that did the same, but for white people in America? That's a more interesting question. Let's talk about white people and the anti-white stuff that's going on.
Because we're
also
a panel
on
of
Twitter.
Jews. Like if anyone on this panel is white, it's Raymond. So like we don't need
Yeah.
to conjecture about
Yeah.
what white people.
But
like,
we
they're
are
Jews, let's talk about the Jews.
on a British
Like,
channel,
Ralph
and
reached
we
out to
are
me because he
talking
wants to
we are
talk
talking
about the
about
Jews. I'm here,
we
I
are
wanna
talking
talk
about
about the
America, which is majority white, and we're talking about the West and its implications. That's what's going on. This is
Because
Well, you could
the
talk about
whole
that with
point.
Raymond. Like I'm here to talk about the Jews.
Okay, well, we don't want to. We're not trying to talk about the Jews.
it
Actually,
was about
It's
Elon
just-
versus the
we?
ADL
Yeah.
and what it
Ralph is the
means.
one who
It means, of course, it's important for Jews, but it's important for everyone.
Okay. Because one of the things that Ralph and I were originally trying to get to as a part of this stream specifically is we do want to stress test the models that we've been using to help communicate with explanatory power the functions and the behaviors of the cathedral and how it works in relation to power and the fact that it is a distributed network model. And we're seeing the behaviors of this network model in effect, where if Elon tries to go after the ADL, we're seeing how it actually, those behaviors actually bleed right into ADL's network connectivity with, systems like the United States government, right? Especially in relation to social power, and how Elon Musk isn't going to win that legal battle, even if he wants to take that fight on. And that's the whole point of that we're trying to have that commentary on this part of the stream. Now, Ralph can correct me if I'm incorrect on that, But I was pretty
Never.
certain that's what we came into this stream having the conversation
Yeah.
about.
But you're surety of
The Jews
prediction
are
the
part of the
future?
ADL. The Jews are part of the ADL, but that's actually the whole ethnic portion's actually irrelevant.
Your
The right
conversation
wants
is
to
based
make
on
that
your
relevant.
certainty of the prediction of the future. The basis of your conversation is accepting that your
It's to
predictions of the
stress
future
test
are
our
absolutely
models.
correct
Yes,
and
it's
beyond arguing.
stress test the
But when you
models.
say
yes.
this is going to happen in the future, that we can't argue on. We just have to accept that Raymond said this is going to
No,
happen
we're
in the future, and he's
you
absolutely
can
correct
argue
on
it
that.
all you want. We're just trying to tell you that we're using this as a strat. We're observing what's going to happen with Elon Musk in real time. We're making
You're observing.
I can't
you're
make
observing
I
what's
can't make
gonna
a
happen in
prediction.
the
I am
future.
not the Lord God
You're not
Almighty.
using- You're observing what's going to happen in the future.
I like how this is now making you
Yes.
angry.
Because
Yes.
you're not making sense. You're saying the postulate of your basis for the stream is your certainty about what's going to happen in the future, and then you just
We had a
use
high
the
confidence.
expression that you're observing the future.
Yes. I have a high
Yes.
confidence. 24 months from now, do it. You can hold this point in time. I will be proven correct.
So there's no conversation here because like you're just
No,
saying,
we can
like,
have
well,
argumentation.
I'm certain of my
We can have a
observation of the
conversation.
future.
We can
and
have
if
a
you don't agree with my
conversation, but you're not
observation of the future,
providing
we can't have a
any
conversation.
model. You're not providing a systemic model counter argument to the actual position. You're just saying you just want to talk about the Jews now, and you just admitted you wanted to talk about the Jews, which is a weird thing because that had nothing to do. Yes, the ADL is Jewish. Sure, that's a byproduct, and maybe the right, Elon siding with members of the right that are anti-Jew, is like part of what's driving this entire conflict. Right, but the whole conversation wasn't to be about the Jews.
Judas' point is that
You
and
keep
what
on
makes this
you
point is
keep
that
on
the ADL,
inaccurately
the
quoting me.
right-wing don't
Straw man,
agree
I want to
with-
talk about Elon Musk siding with Israelis.
No, I think David makes a point, and a lot of right-wing people
Okay.
make the point is, oh, the ADL are not, the ADL are not for us because they're left-wing, and therefore, if they
Okay.
wanted to be friends of the Jews, they'd be more right-wing, etc. But these
Mhm.
things, as Raymond points out, are not models that make any sense in our head at all. Now, I'm making strong
it
claims.
doesn't work like this exactly. So the right wingers will not go against the ADL and tell Elon, no, you must go against the David is I don't know where he gets these ideas. Even Jews that are against what the ADL does are not gonna side with Nazis and Elon Musk. It's not gonna happen.
Mhm.
And that's it.
Yeah,
It's not gonna happen.
right-wing Jews, they might have conservative principles, conservative values. Let's say the Israeli right to detach from this, but they're not going to go suddenly support the Nazis. Right? That's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Ever.
Elon took a very stupid approach where nobody's going to go with him. He's going to be. I mean, maybe he'll be a billionaire at the end. That's not the issue. The
Yeah,
issue
he could
is
be a billionaire at the end.
You're
But
saying the
our
Israeli
problem was
companies that
is-
are currently contracting or however the agreement with Twitter right now are,
Mhm.
let's say they're in disagreement. They disagree with Elon Musk's moderation policy, but they're not pushing it. They're willing to work with Elon regardless of his moderation. Even if Elon decides he's going to allow Nazis to post whatever they want, he's going to like and retweet their tweets, that the Israeli security companies will still work together with no complaints with X.
Well, the Israelis are.
Or they're going to make a contingent. The Israelis will be like, you want us to work for X? You
I
got
don't know.
to ban Keith Woods. No more
Absolutely,
retweeting
I
Keith
hope
Woods.
you're right. I hope the Israeli companies are self-serving and just use him for what they need to do to sell Israeli tech.
Well, they're
The problem
helping
is not
X.
going to be
If
Israeli.
the
The
Israeli
problem
tech
is
is any good, they're
American.
helping Elon Musk. He was able to fire 80% of the previous staff and replace them with just a handful of Israeli companies.
Oh, but that's really fucking him up right now, isn't it? Why do you think
That's
he's
what
fighting
Walter
against-
Isaacson mentioned, that Elon Musk views X largely as an engineering business. He's not looking at it so
engineering?
much
business?
from the
What
social
engineering?
level as an
It's a
engineering.
forum.
engineering.
It's a PHP forum.
Well,
Dude,
that's what Walter Isaacson
What do you
said
mean by
in regards to how
engineering?
Elon
Have you
views.
noticed, David, just the basic, ever since he's taken over, just the amount of times your page refresh has to occur. He's broken the code.
Mhm.
Yes, he made the engineering better. It's a lot worse. The amount of times it just gives me HTTP 501, 502s. The code is crap.
Dude, there's more
That's
technology.
engineering. I want my money back.
There's more technology in one Final Cut plugin or Adobe Premiere plugin in the whole of Twitter. What are you talking about? It's just a big
Twitter's-
text process. It's
There's
trivial
there's no
stuff.
engineering in it.
And
I-
everything, all the
I'm the only
filtering, all
paying
the
member here, I
AI
guess.
stuff.
I'm the only paying member, and God forbid they took my blue check mark away when I added my picture of Jonathan Greenblatt. They got it verified, but I guess I'm the only paying member. Raymond's also a paying member,
No, I'm not a paying member.
so I'm the only paying member of.
Do you really need your $8 back? Or
But no, I'm a happy paying member. We'll say I only did 1 month, and I didn't realize when I changed my profile picture that they said it takes a few days to verify.
I
So
think
right
you
now,
can't put on Mickey Mouse's, and I think it needs to be your own picture. I think that's.
I don't see any technology that Twitter has that is anything special.
It's 10 years
I
old.
mean,
website.
I
10
see
years old.
innovation. I see ChatGPT. I see especially software in video processing. I
Oh,
see
you're absolutely right, Morris. There's
yeah,
nothing in the software.
yeah,
yeah,
but
robotics.
isn't Elon an partial owner in ChatGPT?
But what is he?
You
Yeah,
just
he
said you
actually
bought ChatGPT.
He was
he's
originally a
he's
founding
actually,
member and
is
then
Elon.
opted out.
he's not actually.
Yeah, if
believe
I
he's
may
got
correct that, he was a founding member with OpenAI, which was the original coders of ChatGPT.
OpenAI,
He since left OpenAI because he didn't like their monetization.
That's
That's right.
ChatGPT SDK is open.
So he's not part of. But that's not the point. The point is that I don't understand this thing you said earlier that it's a technology company. Well, if it's a technology company, this is a
quoted
very
Walter
weird.
Isaacson.
Oh, hold on, it's a very weird. I don't care about this Isaacson. It's very weird technology to go into as a technology company. It's not exactly the height of technology. I mean, yeah, it's not. It's the same as Facebook. All the sites use the same type of algorithms that are on the market. There's nothing new.
Engineering has got worse. It's actually got a lot worse. The actual.
I mean, look at the Face ID cameras that are on the phone. That's like
Look, I have a perverted wish. I have a perverted wish. Maybe Elon Musk needs to take his new Twitter technology and put himself on a rocket to Mars using it. I wonder if that would work. Sorry, I'm just being stupid. But no, why do you think do you sincerely believe he thought Twitter was an engineering exercise? I think it was an exercise in ego. Right?
Well, I mean, it seems that the most information known about Elon is going to come from this new book coming out from Walter Isaacson. He had a huge amount of access over 2 years, and it's all the news buzz. Walter Isaacson's been all the news shows. He just did his 2-hour.
Lex
Friedman, the
he
book
was on all the chat shows. It must be true. It must be accurate.
Well, I'd say just saying it's the best information we have available right now.
No.
So this
really.
various information that we're talking about, what's going on with Elon, and saying that
what's he going to say about his relationship with Keith Woods?
I don't know here in the book.
Look forward to that section
because he has no relation with Keith Woods besides liking or retweeting a few of his tweets. He's never met with Keith Woods. He tells stories about Ari Emanuel. Like there's a lot of stories in the book about Elon Musk and Ari Emanuel.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of stories about Elon Musk and his Israeli.
Any updates about the Hyperloop? Any updates about the Hyperloop?
I mean, just like Duvid. Like I don't have any relation with Adam Green. I've spoken to him on the phone. But I mean, like Keith Woods, I liked a few of his tweets. Lucas Gage, I spoke with him on YouTube, and Elon Musk doesn't have relations with these people. He has relations.
Do you believe Elon Musk is a friend of the Jewish people?
Oh yeah, he's got 9 Israeli employees, obviously.
Well, he doesn't have 9. His main partner is Jewish.
Right. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with Elon. I don't think. I think I don't think Elon is anti-Semitic or anything. I think he's just very detached from reality, and he's got into something he doesn't understand.
Do you think he's just a little bit of a spurgy autist?
Yeah, and he's made a huge mistake here because the ADL will have so much evidence. Like I said before, that it doesn't matter what happens in court. He will screw the company. I'm sure Elon will be fine.
They're going to have evidence of content that wasn't moderated. What evidence do they have against Elon besides for unmoderated content?
But that has social impact, David.
That the report to the advertisers were correct. That is all they need. Yeah.
And that has huge impact into general normies in America. Look at that going, oh, these guys are posting racism. They're posting, and normal American society is going to balk at that.
Nobody's arguing that it damaged his company. The question is, were they right to damage his company?
Yeah,
and they will be able to show that they had a good case. They did not lie.
They will have to take their legal strategy. So as of now, it's unclear. So if ADL takes, yes, we led an advertiser boycott against your company.
No, they're not. They don't need to say that. No, they can.
They led an advertiser.
They do not
against.
They do not. They do not need to say that. They just produce. They produce an annual report, and the annual report said, "Here are the organizations that are bad."
It's worse than that. As soon as the law came up, their lawyers have a right to discover it.
Well, so there also
they get
be
their
the
right to their
conflicting
service.
reports of the potentiality that the ADL's reports are not accurate.
It's very easy. It's very. Oh my God! It's very easy to go on Twitter and get evidence in a couple of days.
No, not even that. It's worse than the lawyers are going to claim in the discovery phase that the court is going to grant them access to their servers and give them whatever data they want in discovery.
But what's going to be there that could harm
Nazis?
What's going to be there is threats of violence. There's going to be threats of violence, intimidation, harassment.
I doubt there's going to be any.
Yes, there will be. There's massive scale, on a massive scale. It's crazy what's going on there, and I'm for free speech. But it's impossible. I mean, if my kid goes on Twitter, I don't know what I will do. So far he hasn't, but I mean, it's crazy.
Have you looked at any of the left-wing
people don't like you. Get used to it.
Have you looked at any of the left-wing YouTube
channels? Boo-hoo, people don't like you. Get used to it.
Have you looked at any of the left-wing channels?
No, because it's not a true reflection of reality.
Well, what if it is a true reflection of reality?
But it's not.
The determination is,
but it's not.
There's so much hate content on Twitter because that's the way people feel.
No one can hear you anymore. Have you looked at any of the left-wing channels? They're auditing what's happened to Twitter since Musk has taken over. Just go look at the top 5 large left-wing channels on YouTube. They're going, hey, I used to have all my friends on my tweet lines. Now I get random white supremacy stuff, and all the stuff I get is by $8 paid users. This is all discovery, right?
If someone reports on that, and I mean, if you say that the amount of hate in general has went up, and that's just being indicated on Twitter, not due to any content moderation, but just due to the prevailing attitude of the people.
No, not just that. Due to them being amplified. Look, I can show you the report that says
Elon liking.
I looked through the report, but I was saying that the court will be conflicting reports. And
Elon Musk.
I messaged you because I was going to be a guest on Mario Knopfel, and he has his conflicting reports. So
he's been
He's some dude on Twitter. He's
the most popular. He's the most popular Twitter.
Stop talking.
The CCDH have measured since Elon has made his claims. I can bring up the report in the chronological timeline, what he said he would do and what he promised, and they did. They went through tweet after tweet, reported the tweet, and they were still kept up. Reported the tweet, it was still kept up. And now they're auditing this relentlessly every day, saying everything he said he was going to do and promised on the test. Are you telling me this does not have corporate brand value, social impact? It's massive corporate. He just shows to be either a liar or incompetent.
It could be. I mean, there'll be conflicting reports, and I've looked through those reports, and I looked through the report that Mario shared, and there'll be more reports, and in the court battle will be a battle of reports.
What
do you mean? What are you talking about? It's going to show thousands and thousands of very, very hateful comments and memes.
There's going to be reports that show that. Then there's going to be reports that show that hate is actually decreased. It's actually decreased.
No, it isn't.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That won't help.
How does that work when
that's the report that's the report that
Mario. How do you think Twitter works?
That's the report that Mario was.
No, David. Twitter has got a durable hash for every message. When the message is tweeted, it's got a unique temporal hash code. CCDH are recording every hash code, so you can't just say that didn't occur. It already occurred and it was recorded as a hash code. That means they're going to say, no, you said you were going to deal with this complaint. The CCDH will use anonymous complainers going, look, we complained this guy posted Holocaust denial. You're meant to take it down. It took you 3 days, you didn't take it down. Then another anonymous complaint, and each of those complaints have a hash code. There's no.
What is done is making everyone support the ADL. That's what he's done.
I doubt it. I doubt it. Pretty unlikely. I mean, I saw more.
That's what's happening. What you see on Twitter is a bubble within a bubble within a bubble.
Hadn't even heard of the ADL till a week ago, and he's got Israeli business partners, and he's Australian, and he's
Oh, wow.
philo-Semitic. And just from this, he's against the ADL. He sees them as a nefarious organization. A lot of people have
Right.
never heard of the ADL till this came up.
What is done? What is done by teaming up with known Nazis and the likes is he's aligned himself with very bad people, and there's no way he's gonna stay in the mainstream. They're not gonna let him.
Well, most
It's
of
not
you
gonna
know,
happen.
I think in the court of public opinion, like, I mean, I was on the, especially global, like, because like the most popular Twitter space on Twitter, the Mario, and he had Andrew Torba and Lucas Gade and Keith
Oh,
Woods,
wow.
and they
Oh,
seem
Canadian business
more
people.
reasonable than the Jews. So Mario, as a
Right.
neutral person, philo-Semitic, he might
Right.
even be partially
But
Jewish,
Let me ask you a
is
simple question.
looking at this for the first time, the ADL, and he's
Yeah.
like, Keith Woods seemed
This
like
is all
a
great.
reasonable
I mean,
person.
I hate famous people, but let me ask you this. Most people understand me and Raymond will, because they're both technical. You understand what a hash is? A hash is a unique
Yes.
number that guarantees a tweet. Every hash and every response to complaint has a unique hash. There's no ambiguity about what's happening on Twitter. They're
Yes.
recording every single hash. Now,
Yeah.
when that comes out, they're chronologically. You want me to show you the reports? They're chronologically saying on June 17th, this person posted, the Jews did 9/11. We complained the Jews did 9/11. You didn't respond to the TOS, and that's an immutable record. Now, what is he going to come up and say in court? What's he going to say? They say, "Oh, we did it, we didn't," or "It didn't exist. It's a hash. It's recorded, and they're stashing it on their servers."
Well, it's saying that he does not want to moderate that content.
Aha, but he's made the claim that he is going to moderate the content. He claimed that he was going to moderate the content. He's got formal documentation from Twitter saying they are moderating the content. So here is corporate making statements that we will
Whether
moderate.
that's content that needs to be moderated or not. And
No, but
whether
he's
they-
making the statements as Twitter that they are moderating the content.
well, he's making the statement, or his CEO
Correct,
is
but
making the
do you want
statement.
to see his individual tweets saying that he does so, that he would do so? Do you want to see Linda's tweet? Do you want to see the Twitter corporation tweet saying we are moderating the content? And CCDH are going, no, you're not. And look, we've got the evidence with a tweet hash that you're not doing so. Do it. Don't you think that there's something just disingenuous about that?
No, I mean, his tweets may or may not be legally binding. If you're talking
No,
about
legally,
policy,
morally.
and if you just say moderate, and he's going to
Morally.
moderate content, does that mean that this
Morally.
content is going to be moderated? Is it going to mean that classifies
No, legally,
a certain
morally.
statement that he's going to
Given you're a
moderate
man
what
of the
he
Torah,
considers hate?
man of Tanakh, what do you think morally?
I don't think this is a moral question.
You don't think it's a moral question to lie?
Well, moralities, I'd say personally.
Do you believe Tanakh tells you that lying is good or bad?
Well, that's a personal view, but I mean, religious
must be
pressure
personal.
between
Oh,
God. In some
do we believe
cases,
Tanakh
lying is
is
illegal.
lying?
Some cases, lying is
Yeah,
not
but do
illegal.
you think it's good to lie to the public in this case? Are you saying I'm going to do something and I'm not?
I'm not going to prescribe a moral system on general blanket system of moral system. If you're talking legally,
Raymond writing facts because
Yeah,
speaking is
I'm-
impossible.
Because I'm trying to answer Moonlight Wanderer because he was being genuine about asking the question, and I actually wanted to answer the question as faithfully as
Yeah,
possible. And the position is that unfortunately, when he allows something like anti-Semitism, he actually is in direct violation of U.S. Civil Rights Act 1964, 78 Statute 241, which is part of the U.S. Title Code, which, as you know, is actually part of legal grounds or basis for federal court cases. So it should be a concern. Part of the reason we think Elon would actually be losing, this is part of the reason we predicted as part of the model, is because he takes on the ADL. The ADL's job is to verify that people are, in fact, in line with the U.S. Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's the whole point of having an organization like that in the first place, so that they aren't subject to increased scrutiny. You have something like USA v. Caroline Products footnote 4, which says any organization that may seemingly unfairly target minorities should be subject to that increased scrutiny, therefore then leads to U.S. Civil Rights Act of 1964, therefore leads to federal investigations and possible prosecution. A part of the reason why he would lose the battle. We don't suspect he'd be going to jail. That's not part of the initial claim in any way or form. We are just saying that if he's engaging in this legal battle, he loses this legal battle.
Yeah.
regardless of whether or not it may or may not have. That's why I said I kind of screwed it up by saying earlier it may have a long-term consequence on his.
Right. But Jay Raymond, as a Christian, and I'm
business.
sure as the Torah is quite clear in Deuteronomy
So-
19:16, if a
The whole
false
thing
witness
is
rises up against
unfortunate.
any man to testify against him, which is wrong, there's more the man between whom the controversy shall stand before the Lord, before the priest and the judge.
Yeah, so that'd be the ADL.
And then
But
as
that
a
was probably the
counterpoint, to
ADL,
this
not
stupid-
Elon. Elon is not being
It's-
accused of bearing false testimony. He's being
Okay.
accused of not moderating content. The ADL is the one that's testifying something that may be false.
But that's part
he
of the
actually-
point that we're
he-
making. If I may help with this, that's part of the point that we're making. Is that something to understand? Is that if the ADL being run by the left, there is one thing the left does really good. This is part of the reason Ralph brought up the Center for Digital Hate, and I don't remember what the final C is, but CDHC brings up the fact that they have been very diligent in pointing out all of the hate that has been put onto the platform.
Audited
But
against the claims that they said that they're doing something about it, not just recording the hate, but recording the hate and saying we're measuring the hate, we're pointing the hate at you, and you said you're fixing it, and you're not fixing it.
So the counterpoint to Moonlight Wanderer's other position is the only reason it would be very hard for him to make that case is because the right is not as diligent as the left is at holding the other side accountable. How many organizations do we know?
They're not even stopping. They're relentlessly auditing Twitter. Right?
That's my thing. So how do we? So do we even know of any organizations that are engaging in this? That is engaging in the cataloging, mass cataloging of all the anti-white behavior that is occurring on Twitter, so that you can make a counter argument in this case that hey, we are in fact being free speech absolutists. That's the only issue with it.
Huh? They're busy posting memes, but what the CDC that they're doing is very, very carefully. Since he's made his claim, they've taken each claim from him, each claim from the corporation, each claim against what they've said they're doing. They're auditing each hash digest of every tweet against what they've said, and then they're using multiple anonymous reporters, and then they're recording what you said you do against the report, and they're showing a bed of chronological evidenced lies. How is this a good thing? How is this a win? He's not going to go near the court. This is without disclosure. They're doing this externally, right? Forget disclosure. Disclosure allows them to run aggregation queries, right? Yeah. Which you can't do right now. So yeah, I don't understand why one would defend this. That's the thing that surprises me, because I know David is a man of the book, and it makes
I defend speech. I defend freedom. Defend people's right to hate. Defend people's right to express that hate.
Where does it say that in Torah or Tanakh? Where does it say I should defend the right to hate?
It doesn't necessarily use that language. Where the Torah is more about actions than on the heart.
Where does that
questions of speech? Most questions of speech are speech that cause monetary damage. If you're talking about falsely testifying or something that leads to direct monetary damage, there's a lashon hora is considered sinful, but it's not. It's not.
Can you cite anything in Tanakh? Even don't forget the Torah. Anything in Tanakh that substantiates that it's correct. That
what's correct?
That I'm allowed to lie and deceive.
Well, lie and deceive, if you're talking about language, lying, deceiving, implying that it caused a monetary damage to somebody.
No, this is monetary, just lying and deceiving.
Well, saying lying and deceiving is not something that a court decides. It's something that's recommended it's not a legislative action. The Talmud says that's a sin that everybody is guilty of.
The highest court, the court under bearing witness under Hashem.
Well, I mean, so if you're saying that Elon Musk is going to go to hell, or he's doing things that are not good in the eyes of God, but the Torah does not consider those legislatable offenses. They're not even. You can't even sue someone for putative damages for. I don't care about people have. You can. I don't necessarily understand your point. If you're just saying Elon Musk is a bad person versus you're saying that Elon Musk. I'm not saying that level. That's between Elon Musk and God. You say you teach your kids to be more careful in their speech, but why you got to go against the crusade, and you think that Elon Musk is bad in God's eyes.
Okay. So, but therefore, you're saying that you believe that Elon Musk or that this situation does not apply to the rules of Deuteronomy? which are very, very clear about not lying, not perverting the course of justice, not bearing false witness against the law, not
Yeah,
applying.
you said they're very clear about false witness. That's when you lie in court in order to cause somebody else to get a punishment that they don't deserve or to suffer financial loss. And so I don't see any evidence that Elon Musk has borne false witness. So if you say he's a hypocrite, he's
you
lied.
made lots of streams about the truth, and you made lots of streams about how being truthful is a very core tenet of Judaism. I'm surprised that given the evidence that's
No, it's not. Being truthful is not. Being truthful is a virtue. In Judaism, truthfulness is a virtue. It's not a law. You should be truthful because it's a virtue. So if you want to say Elon Musk is not a virtuous person, that's a different argument than saying something like we should do something about it. He's not virtuous, therefore we should do something about it. You say, okay, he's not virtuous because he doesn't seem like a truthful person. That doesn't mean that his enterprise is criminal or that anything to do with his enterprise.
You're running forward. I'm not even running forward to anything that's consequential. I'm starting with the meta-ethical position because I know you've made streams about being.
I have. Obviously, you weren't listening because you were talking about truth as a virtue versus, I said that the lying in the Bible usually is referring to bearing false testimony or something that directly misleads a person into financial damage.
That's not true. What are you talking about? Stop talking so much, David.
There's like 50,
by talking a lot. Stop.
Yeah, so there's
nowhere does it say about nowhere in that. Just stop talking for a second. Just stop talking for a second.
Israeli learn some Torah.
Nowhere in the passage that Ralph read did it say anything about monetary or anything like that. Stop perpetuating Jewish anti-Semitic cliches for the benefits of your right-wing audience. You're a nutcase, okay? There's nothing about monetary in that passage. There's nothing about monetary. Any damage to a person, you do not damage a person in any way by lying. You do not damage a person in any way by lying. That's what it says.
Judas is a good observant Jew.
You're not.
He says the Torah says, distance yourself from a false matter.
That's a statement of virtue.
Okay.
Not a statement of law. Are you willing to ignore? The statement you read in Deuteronomy is a statement of law. So it's a lawful matter not to give false testimony. If you testify under oath falsely, you could be legally punished for that. The other statements are referring
nothing to do with monetary. Nothing to do with monetary. Nothing to do with monetary.
There are hundreds of statements in the Bible about lying that have to do with monetary.
Yeah, but that one did not. You keep mixing things up, and you're talking so much rubbish. It's like who appointed you some representative of the Jews? You represent the Israeli right. You represent like who are you?
The rabbis that you never paid attention to.
Yeah. You don't know. Yeah. Talk some more. Yes. Talk some more. You didn't talk enough, David. Talk some more. Talk some more, David. Talk some more. Yes, talk some more. Go on, talk some more. You didn't talk enough. David, you know it's so tough when you don't get to talk for 3 seconds.
Look, even Judas says, his rabbi is mitzvah. But this seems like you are skirting the actual spirit of what Torah says. I mean, in simple English, to those who are not of faith, you should be distant from and avoid falsehood, lying, deceit, betrayal.
As a virtue, not as a matter of law.
Yes, we're saying you should be virtuous.
Are you disagreeing that you're talking about as a matter of law, not a virtue? Or are you saying as a matter of virtue, not law?
I'm talking about virtue.
There's some matters that are a matter of law, not virtue, and there's some matters that are a matter of virtue, not law.
I'm interested in virtue. I'm interested, for example, if I'm behaving with the intention in my heart and soul that is correct. And whether I'm punished for it or not, God forbid, bring up things like financial values or legal things. I'm just saying what is being done is not virtuous.
Yeah, but it's not illegal. It's not virtuous. There's a question of lying that is criminal or has monetary damage, and then there's the matter of lying that is just not virtuous. There's no legal punishment. There's no court action for not being virtuous.
That's like saying I stole an apple, but no one caught me, and I didn't go to court and I had to pay for the apple. I'm saying, what about the thing that was in your heart?
No, that's not. It's there's something referred to as lashon hara, which is considered a sin. I mean, Judas is right. Like it's a mitzvah, but it's not a punishable sin.
God bless you, Judas, my friend. It's been a while.
There's not a punishable something that relates to virtue is not punishable. What they call Bezdin Shemayim or the court of man or the court of God. So virtue is something the court of God.
But you're talking about metaphysics. You're talking about virtues of consequentialism. That's way down the road. I'm saying if someone is doing something deceitful, forget the fact that he's caught, forget the fact that he's sentenced. Would you stand by the deceiver? Or would you encourage him not to be deceptive?
I mean, yes, we're saying that if it's a matter that has damages versus just virtuous behavior.
Yeah, in virtue of the soul.
So you say that a person lying is sinful. It's not virtuous behavior. Lying that causes commercial or criminal damages is a matter for the court.
But I'm not interested in those things. Those things to me are derivative. I'm more interested.
Why are you interested? The Torah is a book that covers
because Twitter and Elon Musk are being deceptive. Because Elon Musk and Twitter are being deceptive as evidenced. They're lying. They're deceiving. Surely this is as someone who's observant, this should be something that you instinctively, as Judah said, should be distancing yourself from.
No, because the Talmud says lashon hara is a sin that all people are guilty of. So yes, lashon hara is bad. I mean, one thing like God forbid, like you are basically like everything about you is in virtue. No offense. Like you're not a virtuous person. Like I'm still talking to you, even though you're largely a non-virtuous person.
I prefer Maimonides on the matter. I prefer the fact that I should consider myself equally balanced between innocence and guilt.
And you're talking about
to be either innocent or guilty, equally balanced.
I mean, you're talking about someone that has caused
lying,
damage
deceiving,
that a court
lying, deceiving,
remedy. Deceit that causes monetary damage.
Lying and deceiving the people. I know you want to fillet, Elon brought all the way to Mars, but he is lying and deceiving in an auditable fashion, as Raymond said, that is being audited rigorously and systematically by the left, and he is lying to the people. He is deceiving the people. Surely this is
not even so sure about that, but in a sense of a criminal way, even. I mean, certainly, like whether he's lying in a criminal case, even in virtuous, even for your insistence that Elon Musk is a non-virtuous person, I'm not even sure you've demonstrated that. But like at the higher level that he's done it in a criminal way, I've seen basically nothing that you've said on that. And the Bible is largely given that we're invirtuous by nature, that there's a standard of what it means to be virtuous, like getting angry. It's not a virtuous thing to get angry, although we all get angry. It's not a virtuous thing to speak lashon hara, to speak negatively about other people, to speak, any distance between what your words and the truth. These are all invirtuous things. And then there's a level of the law where a person does it to the point where a court should get together and collectively punish the person. And the Bible is very clear. It has a whole series of laws, and it has a whole clear statement of what it means to be a virtuous person that is not subject to law in the court. I don't know what's so complicated about this.
Okay. I mean, I don't know why you're so keen on this guy. Very strange. I mean, he's okay. I don't know. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, because you're a piece of shit who disrespects your rabbis, and that's why you have to listen to me, who went to Israel and listened and respected the rabbis that you disrespect. And for the sake of my rabbis, I will call this guy a piece of shit.
Okay. Do some more, David. It's funny.
Yeah.
Any more? Do you want to speak now for any other Israeli parties, or which parties?
I spoke for my rabbis that I went to Israel and seriously studied under for multiple years, and someone like you had that potential your whole lifetime.
You know, I visited the pizzeria. I know the spokesman.
You consistently disrespected him from the day you were born till today.
He's now an absolute expert on pizza.
Yes,
all kinds of
pizza. Yes, I once went into a pizzeria. I now speak for them. Not only
what about the pizzerias? What about the pizzas?
No, not. I don't just understand the pizzeria. I also understand the different factions within the pizzeria. The struggles of the kitchen
it's all
staff
a
with
joke
the
to you.
waiters, you know.
God forbid it's all a joke to you.
Yes, stupid. Yes.
I-
I mean, the thing is, if you want to
Southwest
understand
far
what's
away.
going on, is you
And
come,
God
you
forbid
give
Ralph
you.
knows so little
Oh,
about
you don't.
Judaism and the Bible
I thought
that he
for
could
a second.
occasionally talk to the Mossad,
Yeah, stop.
and he could bullshit his way around this stuff, even though he's never opened one of these books, never stepped into these institutes, even though he lives right
Right.
next door to them.
Luckily, I brought cake.
Not pizza. We didn't bring pizza. We brought cake.
And
I
God
got
forbid
cake for when you
spent your life
speak.
at the gay disco in Tel Aviv and never once stepped into yeshiva, never once opened up the Talmud. You were too busy at the gay disco.
Right.
God forbid.
Yeah, the gay disco. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Do you have the address,
to do about it, but
David?
that's new.
And like you're not even one of the Israelis that's working for Elon Musk. I mean, you're just a troll. You're not even one of the. I mean, one thing if you spend your life at the gay disco, but were a genius to be one of the guys working for Elon Musk now, but you're not. You're just a troll who doesn't know shit.
Okay.
God forbid.
Well, it's possible.
Rosh
It's
Hashanah
possible.
next Friday night. Rosh Hashanah.
Oh,
Like I suggest repenting.
cool. It's possible that Elon Musk's whoever how he does his investments has shares in the companies I work for. I work for lots of companies, so multinational companies. So I don't know.
It shows how distributed the model would be, right? If we found out exactly how much of his portfolio is actually invested in international, like multinational corporations, we could actually see how interconnected the model really is.
You could
which I would find fascinating, really.
I mean, you could buy shares in companies I work for, right? You know, anyone. You can just log in and buy now.
Yeah, Tesla.
No, I work for multinational companies that are trading. You can, anyone can invest.
I just can't tell you because I'm in a non-troll. God forbid.
Short Tesla.
I'm signed on NDAs. I don't tell who I work for.
Yeah, I mean, you signed so many NDAs, you can't even give your name or your face. So top secret.
It's not top secret, but I just don't think it's relevant who I work for. I talk about politics and things like this. So my personal story is not relevant,
What about Netanyahu in the news and his statement about not believing in God? All the pressure, the coalition is going to fall apart because Netanyahu said that God wasn't always there for the Jewish people this week.
Netanyahu is going to do it. Arman Ben Gvir.
He already did apologize for that. Netanyahu did apologize. Yes, God has always been there every second for the Jewish people. Netanyahu unequivocally apologized for that stupid statement.
He can take that out, but Ben Gvir is going to tell him what to do. My man Ben Gvir is going to make sure that
Ben Gvir, next prime minister.
God willing.
ADL, Ben Gvir. You can see Ben Gvir is going to stand up to the ADL.
Ben Gvir is my man. I mean, what kind of amazing person says Israel is not a star on the U.S. flag? I mean, it's like go Ben Gvir, right? So, are you a fan of Ben Gvir, too?
I'm not a fan of politicians. I mean, God forbid. Like I said, I knew the Kahanists, and but I mean, it's tough to say. Like, I'm not going to stand behind politicians. Ben Gvir is not subjugated to the rabbis. Many of the rabbis has openly called them out, especially about going to the Temple Mount. It does not seem like Ben Gvir, gives the rabbis enough respect. But like relative to the politicians, I mean, you would say maybe he's more honest or he's more real. And even there, like your policy, I wouldn't agree with him. But he's the new direction of Israel.
What policy would you agree with? Going to the Temple Mount?
Well, the rabbi, I don't even saying the right wing, the expansionist, the Judeo superiority centric. I don't really agree with any of those policies.
Do you believe that what is in the Torah is fundamental?
Yeah,
when Hashem says that the Jewish people, when Hashem says the Jewish people have been promised the land from the Euphrates to the Wadi, do you agree with Hashem?
Well, it doesn't matter whether I agree with Hashem. I mean, Hashem said it is a prophecy, what's going to happen in the future. But he's saying it's not like if you're serious about religion, generally you're not that into politics. Is
No,
what
no
the
politics.
word
I'm
kept
saying,
on saying.
none of the politics. I'm saying, do you believe that
Like the more you go to church, the less you focus on politics. The more you go to synagogue, the more
No
you study
politics,
Torah,
just
the less
religion.
you focus on politics.
They're not politics, but do you believe that Hashem says that the land from the Wadi Euphrates is Israel?
I mean, it's if you're talking, do I believe in the Torah? Is there a verse in the Torah that says something close to that?
Yeah,
and that's
it says
interpretable?
precisely. It says, "I will
That-
give you the
that's a
land."
statement.
from the Wadi."
That's a statement of prophecy, not a statement of law. So if you're talking about something, yeah, believe in the prophecy has some direction of what is likely to happen in the future. It's not a statement of law. It's not a statement that you could act on and therefore confiscate. You necessarily confiscate territory for Palestinians or non-Jews, and then even to say the Jews or Israel, what does it mean? The state of Israel. So these are all interpretable, but saying we don't live by the prophecy, we live by the law. That verse is not a statement of law; it's a statement of prophecy.
So even though that is not a prophecy, it's directly the word of God.
Your obligation is to obey God's law, not to live according to the prophecies about the future.
Including
The
those
prophecies about the
directly.
future are important. You should think about them, understand them, believe that these things are hopefully going to happen in your lifetime, but you live according to the law. You don't live according to the prophecy.
So in the first book of the Torah, in just the first book of the Torah, not the prophets, when Hashem and the Lord says, "I make a covenant with Abraham, giving your descendants the land from the river of Egypt to the river, from the Wadi to the Euphrates." Not a prophecy.
It's not a statement of law. So when God says, obey the commandments, God does not say, believe in the prophecy. There's no statement in the Bible that says you are obligated to believe in all the prophecy. The statement is you're obligated to obey the law.
So you're saying that
you're basing things on
the Lord made
this
his covenant with
Christian type
Abraham,
attitude where it's
and the
about
Lord,
belief in prophecy, not obedience to the law.
If I'm allowed to say something, his descendants include the Ishmael, right?
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm
So
just curious.
that's working out more
But
or
that's a
less.
statement of prophecy, not a statement of law.
But it seems to have come true, more or less. So.
Well, yeah, so you believe the prophecy is going to come true. It's a prediction about the future, but you don't live according to the prophecy. You live according to the law.
And what do you think of the prophecy?
It doesn't matter what a person thinks about the prophecy. It's prophecy.
But what do you think of the prophecy?
He sounds like
I study it. I mean, saying the prophecy is prophecy. It's God's word.
Okay.
You know, it's not, I mean, you're not supposed to think about it. You're supposed to study it, memorize it. But the prophecy clearly says it's the law that we're commanded by, not the prophecy.
Yeah, the Jewish tradition is to follow
that requires us to believe all the prophecy. The statement is to obey the law.
Yeah. In Judaism, the emphasis, as you probably know, is on what you do, is how you act more than what you believe, or how you.
God's going to back me up on this.
Yeah. So you have to just, act according to the mitzvot, even if you disagree with them or you don't understand why, or yeah.
So so it's interesting. So we know at least that we understand that there's the Elon. I think we've come to the natural settling point. We have Jamie. Good evening, Jamie. You've been terribly silent. It's time to hear from the pagans.
This conversation is a bit beyond my knowledge, so it's good to listen to.
I mean, it must be a pagan.
Well, I was trying to make it more general and talk about the fact that there's not just anti-Semitism, but there's anti-white agenda as well that's going on online.
Yes. Criticism of the
which is similar. It's very, very similar in my mind. Some of the talking points are identical talking points in many cases.
Correct. Now the counter. Then the question becomes, well, why isn't the so-called right more just as diligent about cataloging and categorizing all of the anti-white hate as the left is about categorizing and cataloging all of the?
The answer is very easy, Raymond, because all structures of the right across all models show their purity spot.
It's one of the because the right focuses on law and order.
You
don't need to catalog hate. People have a right to hate. Even the right that focus on it.
You already said this like 5 times.
Black I
wasn't asking you,
They
David.
focus almost exclusively on violence.
I wasn't asking you, David. I was asking
because
Todd.
you just want to have some sort of
I want to have a
narrow
productive
casting, the
debate,
bubble.
not a degenerative debate that keeps breaking down
because
into
the
your
thing, the right
perceptions of
focuses
law and
on
order,
violence.
whatever that even means anymore, given the way that Cathedral is actually behaving.
If you look at like Tucker Carlson or any of the right-wing pundits,
They're not right wing. They're classical liberal, dude. Come on.
They play consistently violence. They do not focus on hate speech. They focus exclusively on violence. Because that's part of being the right wing. You're allowed to hate. You're allowed to express your hate.
No, I think a
Law
lot
and
of
order,
people.
you're not allowed to do violence. So when they
No,
focus on
absolutely.
anti-white,
No.
they focus on anti-white violence, not
Wing would be
anti-white
pro-faith,
speech.
pro-family.
Jews focus on anti-Jewish speech. Whites focus on
No, you're
anti-white
talking about a
violence.
classical
What are
liberal
you talking
position.
about?
It's the capacity to
It's
engage
nonsense.
in human behavior in the natural sense. For it to-
Focus on speech.
anybody that would be considered right wing would have to be fundamentally pro-faith first, and anybody that actually reads the scripture would be fundamentally anti-violence first. That's actually, weirdly enough, how libertarians get to the NAP position. That's how they get to the non-aggression principle position. Because they would actually incorrectly quote the Bible, by the way. They would incorrectly quote the Bible, but the Bible nonetheless, weirdly enough.
Well, you asked why they're not focusing on.
No, all I
anti-white
asked
speech,
was
because
why
from the
don't
right-wing
they
perspective,
catalog
anti-white
stuff?
speech is not a big deal.
I'm
It's
trying
not
to
something
point
that-
out that the right
it's not
doesn't
something
care to
that
be
needs to be
diligent
focused
about
on.
that. They just think that truth means power. That's part of the problem. It's a breakdown in the epistemic model and the breakdown in the metaphor.
I think a lot of right wingers are realizing that all this anti-white talk is causing violence against them, and it makes it difficult for them in all sorts of situations. So they realize themselves that it has an effect.
There's another deeper reason,
worried about the talk.
that shows up frequently is that if you look at the organizational patterns and structures of the right versus the left are very good at organizing low-level cooperative models. The right are constantly for purity spiraling and hierarchy. If you want to get something done, you need a team of people who are going to sit there and do the dumb, if you like, low fidelity work. The left are fantastic at that. The left eat themselves for different flaws. The right are constantly purity spiraling. You're not based enough. You got 1% Jew. You're not. You don't believe in God, and you don't get anything done.
Now,
Right?
to quote American working class, it would be something akin to, "Yeah, we don't want to do that tedious bullshit."
Yeah, basically, they won't do the monkey work. They won't do the dog.
Yeah, we don't want to do the tedious bullshit.
It's like the Judeo thing. The left polices speech and thought, and the right polices action and identity.
That's not necessarily the explanatory power for why they don't fail. The better reasons, for example, is if you look at any right wing versus left wing group, the left are going to organize and put down their things towards a collective purpose. The right are going to speak about the collective purpose and then purity spiral.
Well, because they police identity. They're
purity spiral. Literally, they're going to be, you're not based on, you're not for Jews.
The left is policing speech and belief. The right is policing identity and action.
No, they're not. They're not going to form cooperative groups. The right are terrible at creating cooperative groups. You can't get a single. Go into any chamber. I have many ideas. I run many experiments on it. You run any right-wing chamber. Within 2 minutes, you're going to get into an identitarian battle, whether you're based or not.
Because they,
because
you're excluded. Because the right polices identity. That would exclude us. The right would just exclude you, because it would be a simpler than rather policing
exclude each other
or belief. Just exclude you based on identity. You're not one of us.
You know that academic agent believes Keith Woods is a Fed.
Hey, the first rule of DR Fight Club,
is 100% convinced. I mean, and if you dare argue with him, he blocks you.
Yes.
So I didn't.
That's a purity spiral. We observe purity spiral in real time.
Yeah, he blocks identity. He just says you're not one of them. There's no benefit.
You don't even understand the conversation, Luffy.
No,
just continue your monologue.
There's no purpose for him to have a conversation with you.
Understand how identity.
You're an opponent of his based on your identity.
David, let me
Your
help you
beliefs
one step.
don't matter. Your speech don't matter. You're an opponent.
David,
based
you
on
don't
your
understand the
identity.
model correctly. Listen, the way the group homophily forms is there's two different dimensions over time. One is your identity and status. What the right are going to do, they're going to keep dividing the status. Hey, you're not white enough. You're Eastern European. You're not based. You don't support an autocracy. And they're going to keep purity spiraling the group, meaning there's going to have no group effectivity. Whereas the left are not going to do that. So they're going to have group effectiveness, which is why the left are very good at mass mobilizing movements. The right are useless If you go to a National Socialist chamber, they're going to say, you're an ethno-nationalist. You don't believe in fascism. You go, okay, I'm a fascist. Well, you're not a National Socialist. I'm a National Socialist. You're not this type of... And they'll keep purity spiraling on identitarian axes, and they're ineffective. Hence, the left are going to do what Raymond's initial question is. They're going to organize, because the left are not going to appear. The left's problem is they're going to eat themselves up.
Yeah.
That's their problem, right? They're going to be, you're not just enough. You don't care about the Nicaraguan. Well, I care about the Nicaraguan. You don't care about the Nicaraguan lesbian. Oh, I care about the Nicaraguan lesbian. You don't care about the one-legged Nicaraguan lesbian. Right?
Eventually it turns out into like, this one Nicaraguan lesbian is also missing one extra cell, therefore.
Indeed.
But
and therefore you're not demonstrating the first two dimensions.
Holy enough.
Yeah. So the identitarian thing is its own worst weapon, its own worst flaw, right?
So that was my only counter question, right? Was that sorry. You go.
Go on, Kingston.
Well, my question is that as flawed as Elon Musk is, shouldn't we at least be grateful that he is creating like alternative forms and a alternative economy, rather than having it all controlled by the cathedral?
No, I don't believe so.
No.
I think in the medium term, in the macro game, it's actually a loss.
Yes.
I thought it was a win that he's sported. It's a loss. He's been he's been short-sighted. He's gone to bed for the wrong reasons. Ego. He's gone to bed with the wrong people because he's got the ego thinking, oh, they're going to cheer me on, because most billionaires and elites want fame, right? He's got money. He wants people to like him. That's a terrible strategy.
And this monetization of engagement is creating more enragement, more clickbaiting, more porn. It's not good. Advertisers don't like all this stuff.
They don't. I mean, look, my wife.
They like people sharing recipes and pictures of their vacations, and
They also don't like things that rock the boat. Advertisers want consistent, regular things. They want to show I don't want my 14-year-old daughter to suddenly be looking at a pair of Adidas trainers and then see a Holocaust picture. That's just terrible brand value, right? It doesn't matter what you care about the whole. And he doesn't understand that. He prefers to be, give these $8 guys tweets, put their message protocol ahead of the queue of everyone else, and they go, "Oh, Elon, you're God." He doesn't understand what we already know. The dissident right will turn on him in a second, and they'll suddenly call him a cock and a betrayal and a communist and a Fed and a Jew, and they call him all these things as soon as he does something they don't like.
Of course.
It's short-term love. It's not love.
I thought Elon Musk had a meeting with one of the Rothschilds and on the actual discussion of actually turning it down.
Beggars! Somebody get the beggars!
What people forget is that Elon is a billionaire from being a banker.
Yeah,
he's a banker.
Bro, I guess maybe it is just my circles, because I pull up my feed right now. I guess maybe I just have followed the wrong people, because like my feed is just filled with a bunch of like coaches and marketers talking about how they're going to build things in the dark, and it's time to get their money, and they're going to get their monetization. They're going to make money, and they're going to get followers, and they're going to make money, and
the capitalist dream of, hey, I'm suddenly going to do a Tim Pool and everyone's going to give me $5 sub share. Like,
yeah. Hey, follow me so I can help you get more followers. DM me so I can help you get more followers. So that's
like multi-level marketing.
So, I've considered making fun of it, just posting like images of me like building a stack of Legos in the dark and just say I'm building in the dark and like make it literal. Just a literal
audience won't appreciate this. Hey, just go full Amway on them, right?
Like I wanted to be like, be me, 34, dead broke, no place left to go but down, and I'm building in the dark, and then just have a picture of me building Legos in the dark. Just make it completely literal and completely insane, just to make fun of it. Like, the whole thing's ridiculous.
Anyway, chaps, I'm gonna have an early meeting tomorrow morning, like quite early. So maybe we should call it this. I think we've managed to have enough of a fight about the thingies, but the Elon Bros. Unless anyone has anything else to say, JB, what's that? I missed IC3 tonight. I was hoping to get an IC3.
Yeah, it was. Apologies for everybody that was watching on my behalf. I did lose control, but that's because I'm so sick of having the debate about liberty versus freedom and nobody seems to understand what they're actually saying when they say one versus the other. They're talking about no consequence versus allowing the law to have consequence. Therefore, liberty is actually what they mean and not freedom. That's a real
Hey, it's nice to see the passion explosion once in a while.
I just like, man, it's like, yes, it is freedom. It's like, no, you're not defining freedom. Get it right. Go pull up a dictionary. We got Webster's and Oxford Dictionary. You pull them both up.
Who said, even if you forget the distinction, who said this is the most important thing?
Yeah.
I mean, it is important freedom is important, but who said it's the overriding principle that wins on each ethical issue?
Yeah.
I hear one more flash as well, because I've got to flash this in front of David was because I failed to pull this one off. Because here's what he doesn't have. Twitter fails to act on 99% of Twitter blue accounts tweeting it. So the CCDH are just measuring. Black culture is more damaged than the Klan did. The Jewish mafia wants to replace all the brown people. Trannies are pedophiles, diversities. So all of these reports, obviously, he's going to get screwed if they ever come to court. I don't think he's going to court. So that's my view.
Yeah,
these theories are so stupid as well. It's such a shame that instead of developing some solidarity, the reaction is actually part of the fall.
It's literally, I was trying to explain to you, there's a great diagram. I don't know if you guys are interested. Let me see if I can just pull it up so I can please status values in this way. Let's see if I put this diagram. Do we can understand this?
You're a bit quiet, Ralph.
Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, let Ralph do his thing. He'll pull it up. No, I'm just kidding. I heard him typing, so I figured he was pulling something up. So I was like, I just let him go. Just let him do it. Let Ralph do the thing.
No, he's generally quiet. I always have trouble understanding him with all these echoes.
I got my mic right here in front of you for you. For you, I pulled the mic out of the box, but I haven't plugged it in. But see, this is what he didn't understand. This explains it. If you look at how social graphs are formed, they're formed in two axes, status and value, right? So status might be I'm white, I'm male, I'm 22 years old, and that provides my identity. But the social group is managed by how much value applied to this. What happens on the right is what's happened is Twitter's been emerged by people just go, hey, look, I'm based, give me value because I'm going to say something about insert Jews, black people, gay people. And they just go round and round forming this completely pointless echo chamber loop, which has got no value whatsoever other than to their own internal social identity graph. And what's happened is because he's opened this out, you get this relentless post of saying, the Jews did 9/11, like. And as soon as they're liking, what they're doing is they're signaling their value homophily to the status of that group. And they're injecting those on. This is a losing strategy. All they're doing is going to create a tighter and tighter echo chamber, which basically just keeps removing people from this value homophilic structure and just ejecting people. And what Elon doesn't seem to understand, that's precisely what is happening on Twitter. All they're doing is running themselves like any good old DR Telegram channel group. They're going to run themselves they're going to run out of basically anything other than highly coupled uni-model views of the world. Jews did 9/11. Black people are murderers, whatever nonsense they're going to do. And that's just a shame of the platform because that means you cannot have discourse anymore. There's no discourse.
I mean, we were just laughing the other day because until 2020 or so, we were told, or whenever 2021, the ongoing thing in the far right or whatever we want to call this thing was that Jews inflicted the Holodomor on the Ukrainians because they hate Ukrainians. And okay, I mean, fine. And then as soon as the Ukraine war started, they forgot all that, and the Jews started the war because they love Ukrainians and hate Russians.
Oh, yeah. I think Joseph from the Israel Advocacy Movement did a good video tip on that.
And don't worry, they'll forget about it as soon as the war is over and switch to something else. I mean, so much of it is so stupid. Like the Americans that are big fans of Assad as well. They go on about the USS Liberty, which in which Israel killed several Americans, but they forget that Assad and his gang are responsible for the death of 300 American soldiers, which was planned.
It's inconsistency. And so the entire American Revolutionary War was from the killing and blowing of as many Brits as possible for their independence and liberty. And they're like, oh, but you can't, and I use the word liberty in quotes here in case Raymond kicks off. And literally, just kidding, man. But literally,
The-
they're like, oh, but when this thing happens and the Jews are fighting for their independence and movement form a nation, it's suddenly about, hey, get the Jewish people. And this whole, like you said, this whole kind of crazy thing on Ukraine, Russia is literally, they literally boiled down to the Jews are playing both sides against both nations that happen to kill Jews just for the benefits of Jews. You're like, I mean, listen to yourself, man. You sound crazy. And then one last point, Raymond, is how unpatriotic it is for these people to suddenly side with the enemy of the Americans. I don't get that bit at all. These guys have been fighting the Americans, and suddenly these Americans are saying, yeah, actually, I'm on the side of Russia because Russia is our friend. And like, what? Since when were Russia when did Russia become your mates? Yeah, this is just
there was a British. I was watching trigonometry, and there was a British academic on the right that was talking also about how Russia and China and Iran are financing radicalism in the West and the agitation. They actually are helping all these agitators get people more and more, because think about anti-Israel sentiment in America. That's bad for America, because there's nothing the enemies of America would love more than disconnect it from its allies.
Oh yeah, it would hurt Israel and it would hurt the United States.
It would, yeah, absolutely, yeah, both. I mean, obviously, it will hurt Israel, but Americans don't realize that it will hurt America. America is already suffering because of the gradual loss of the petrodollar, where a lot of countries have started trading in other currencies.
Russia and China are very excited to remove the dollar monopoly. But you make a good point, Mossad, for example. It's like, and anyway, the issue's kind of moved because these guys live in a fantasy land. There's no way. The majority, if you look at every data point, Jews are really popular in the United States. Jews are on television. Jews are the actors. Jews are the film stars. Jews are comedians. The sentiment analysis of Jewish people is very strong in the United States. This idea that suddenly because a bunch of far-right loonies are going to go, hey, let's go get the Jews in Israel, that somehow the United States is going to cut ties with Israel is just...
From what I understand, the new generation has been mostly brainwashed by leftist anti-Israel information. So the baseline we're starting from for people who are in the now 20s and maybe even 30s is that what they consider objective, unbiased discussion of the conflict is already biased against Israel.
Oh yeah, I think that's going to be the young generation. The data shows that, again, that research at MIT shows it's the pro-Palestinian propaganda that's been very, very strong. That's causing young people who would normally be quite tolerant, because the young generation is terribly tolerant in the United States, have picked up on this one single issue that they suddenly think, oh, Israel is bad because more Palestine.
It's a manifestation of Jew hate, basically, but it comes through a different channel. I can go into explaining all of that, but it's the same thing as the anti-white. It comes from the same sentiment. So on the left, it's the same people. So it's BLM. They hate the Jews, and the Jews prove that the blacks are wrong. They prove BLM wrong, because the vast majority of Jews that came to America were very, very poor, and there was no social security or anything, and the vast majority of them managed just fine, while blacks are whining still.
I'll give you some
doesn't look good.
I've been collecting a small library of left-wing progressive American anti-Semitism and analysis of how it works, and I'll share some links with you on DM later. It's really interesting to see how that young generation are being picked up, and pretty much where the oppressive, postmodern, progressive, oppressive thinking is that those who have a explicit agenda against Israel have got these young kids to think that Israel is the ultimate oppressor, settler state, colonial state, apartheid state. All of these things are debunked consistently. They're being brain sort of washed or spoon-fed this idea that Israel is the oppressor. You tell them, no, they say Israel is an ethno state. You're like, no, it's not. Israel is white supremacy. The majority of Jews aren't white. It doesn't matter what the data is. The culture of Israel is a white fascist supremacist. They can't even. They actually think that the majority of Jews in Israel are white, for example, which is kind of insane. And the majority of people in Israel are white, right?
So it's very, very mixed,
But could you still acknowledge that it is somewhat problematic when Jews have this kind of like how you say it, hypocritical stance. So they'll say that, oh, it's good for the West, like America or Europe, to have all these immigrants, but as soon as they say,
Which Jews? Which Jews? Who says this?
Well, surprising. It's both right-wing Jews and left-wing Jews. Like even
No,
even George Soros. You know.
What do you mean? Even George Soros? He's a lefty.
Yeah,
He's
I know,
an
I
enemy
know.
of Israel. He was described as #1 enemy of the state by a lot of people on the right, including Bibi's son.
Yeah, it's true, but I think there was like this foundation that was meant to promote.
He's not Israeli even.
Yeah, I know, but he has foundations all across the world. But as soon as like a foundation that hits Israel in a negative way, like promoting certain LGBTQ things, then he defunds it. So he does have like.
You talk about him being evicted by Orban evicted him from Hungary, and then he moved to Germany and took the Soros Foundation. But there's a thing there, Jamie, that comes up a lot, and this is there's two kind of tropes that run in parallel. One is that the Jews have a dual loyalty trope, or they have one set of rules for them and another set of others. That is trope. For example, it treats the Jews as monolith. And the other problem is
it's false.
Double standard thing that, oh, I want to treat the Jews as having some sort of double standard, but I'm not going to apply that to the Christians, the Muslims.
Soros is trying to apply the same rules to us. So in Israel, he finances organizations
NGOs,
that bring refugees. We have a massive problem in southern Tel Aviv, which we've been trying to deal with for 20 years. Did you not see the riots that they caused only a few days ago?
Yeah.
So Soros is pushing the same agenda. He doesn't have a different agenda for Israel.
Yeah. But you know, again, Jimmy,
this is just nonsense on the internet. It's got nothing to do with reality.
It's a deeper
Soros is consistent.
Yeah, but not just Soros. That Jamie's pointing to a trope that comes across, and it's a quite a dangerous trope. One trope is the idea that the Jews have double standards, which is a trope. And just I'll share the link with you, Jamie, about the analyst from MIT showing how she just shows you in the data why the double standards apply for Jews but no one else. So that should immediately give you another problem you have is that the Jews that some of the Jews should be held to a different standard that you wouldn't apply to anyone else. So if I said, Jamie, this would resonate with you. If I said, should the English be held to a double standard? You'd immediately balk at the idea that the English should be held to double standard. If I told Raymond, should white people, Americans or Christians be held to double standard? You immediately balk and go, we shouldn't be held to double standard. But when you point to Jews or Israelis, it's somewhat okay to point them to double standard, which is an anti-Semitic.
I mean, America defends Australia, and you know,
the Angus here does,
yeah.
But anyway, let's get back to that. I do have an important work piece.
I acknowledge I acknowledge we'll have double standards. I'm not like pointing the fingers that it's particularly bad when these people do it. I'm just saying that
but what will happen is you won't find it in the consistent narrative discourse, in so much that you won't be pointing out all the time saying, let's just say something to adjacent neighbors. You've been saying Americans have double standards, right? Or you say the English have double standards. You balk at the idea that you're being held to a standard of double standards. But Israel and the Jews, particularly Israel, are constantly pointing out that they're holding a double operating standard, and only the Jews are. I'll give you the links to MIT data showing, it didn't apply for Indian Americans, it doesn't apply for Catholic Americans. It applies for Jews and Jews alone, which normally should tell you that you.
I mean, the Irish Americans donated to the IRA. You know, they were literally, you know, they were literally giving them money to bomb English citizens.
Yeah. But then the question would be, would you hold the Irish in Boston? Would you say, they have a double Jew? Would you say the Irish in Boston have a Jewish standard loyalty? They're not really loyal to the Americans. They're loyal to the Irish. And you would no, such a thing would be, you'd balk at this idea, right?
I think it's understandable. I mean, that, you know, if you have families and connections, and it's understandable that you'd care about the place you come from or you feel related to. But it's not it can be tricky if you come to a country that is completely opposite. But for Jews and America, I mean, it's not a country that rejects Jews. You know, they feel fine in America in general.
But I'm just saying, like, I mean, I think the cathedral's happy for the West to like be destroyed in like a nuclear war. But as soon as Israel is threatened, they'll be like, whoa, 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 whoa.
No, the cathedral does not.
I'm not sure what you mean.
I'm not sure what you mean. The cathedral is going to apply mass migration, globalization to all countries, including Israel.
Yeah.
Israel is not immune to this at all. Mossad is telling that
Sure it is.
Israel is under tremendous pressure from left-wing non-NGOs, right, to say bring in migration, secularize the nation, get rid of religious traditions. They're also subject to attack and globalization. Israel is not immune to globalization. Right?
Yeah, and we've got our leftists and our socialists and our all it's all the same basically, but every place has its own peculiar way of doing this. And Israel is, because we're also in wars all the time, it's different. It's just different, but it's all the same in the end. You can see the same, like you can see the same ideas, the same modes of thought, like, and we can see how our academia is gradually also becoming more and more lefty. And
Ben Gvir for Prime Minister, no matter. On that note, guys, I'm gonna have to because I got to work in the morning.
yeah, I mean the US is doing their best to get him out.
Peace out, boys.
Biden, I should say. Biden.
I know. I was sitting here having a conversation with Iran in the chat about liberty and freedom. So it's like being a complete autist about it. Like
I blocked Iran because Elon, or whatever his name is.
I don't think Elon and Mossad are going to go for drinks anytime soon.
He suffers from JOCD, so it's like.
You think?
So
it's I think it's incurable.
Thanks for having me on as a co-host, though, Ralph. Appreciate it anytime.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Thank you.